I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:04. Now, before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, there's been some comment that I don't stand. I'm not commenting on the flag. Where is it? Okay. I'm not making some sort of silent protest. I'm in a good deal of athletic pain, and getting up and down is a little, and it's embarrassing. So I will begin the pledge if the rest of you who are able will stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let me see if I can get that.
Now, the quorum is 5. John DeStefano is here, Cynthia Walsh is here, Scott Heller is here, Michael Horan is here, and Francis Brudinetti. And the feedback from this thing is just awful.
There's a little feed. We just started. Echo's still here.
Do we have the draft minutes? Next week.
Yeah, I sent them out. I don't know if anybody has them.
Oh, they weren't in my packet.
Okay, my bad.
In accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extends the Governor's March 12, 2020 order of suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2025, this meeting will be conducted both in person and virtually via Google Meets. A public hearing will be held by the Municipal Operations Committee on March 11th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to discuss the annual town meeting articles listed below. The meeting may be recorded and may be broadcast live over SMAC and recorded for later broadcast and internet access. And to participate in the public hearing with Google Meets, I don't even know how to read that. To join the public hearing by phone, it's US +1 904 900 0988. The PIN is 890304 533#. Agenda items may be taken out of order at chairperson's discretion. There's absolutely not going to be any voting tonight. It'll all be next week. We'll, depending whether we get through the hearings or not. We're going to continue, including the voting, on Monday, the 18th.
18th, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
At 7 o'clock. And it would be, Mr. Moderator, that's in the attendance room also?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. What I'm going to try to do is call an article. If there are petitioners, there are seats there and microphones. If no petitioner comes forward, I'm going to go to the next hearing, and I'll do those where no one shows up at the end, or maybe next Monday. We already have someone saying they can't make it, so we'll start with Article 20, Public Works and Facilities Capital. Is there someone here for that? Okay.
Yes.
Would you state your name and position for the audience?
Can I interrupt you, Madam Chair? We need a determination of the quorum. We should take roll call.
We did.
Do we take roll call?
But you know what I missed? I need a motion to open the public hearing.
Perfect. Anybody here? Use your microphone if you would.
Motion open.
Okay. Second. All right. I will do a roll call because we have members on the I've been retired for 25 years, so my act isn't as good as it used to be. In favor or not of opening the public hearing? John? Are you in favor?
Yes.
Cynthia's in favor. Scott?
Yes.
Michael? And Fran? Yes. Okay. So, Mr. Moderator, have I caught up?
I believe so, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll start with Article 20. Are there extra warrants over there?
No, there isn't.
Okay. Then I'm going to read it. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, including but not limited to any of the enterprise funds of the town, or borrow a sufficient sum or sums of money to replace and/or purchase and/or lease purchase for terms of up to or more than 3 years the following items, including equipping of vehicles and equipment, and if applicable, professional engineering, architectural services, design, site preparation and demolition, installation, and all other incidental and related costs, all are set forth in the chart below. And I guess all I see just one item. Would you just introduce yourself and your position, please?
Sure, thank you. Paul Jaffoon, Public Works.
All right. And I only see one item, a rack truck for $151,000. Would you care to make a presentation?
Sure, thank you. We actually brought this up at the fall town meeting. Is it possible to mute that?
I can turn it down a little more, but I don't want to. Can you guys still hear us online? John, can you?
You don't have a mic on, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't hear him. John, can you hear me? I can't hear him, though.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it up a little bit. John, can you say one more time your name? There you go.
Okay.
Just do the best we can.
Yep. We brought this article to the fall town meeting. We were unsuccessfully. But this article before you is to replace a 26-year-old rack truck that has almost 230,000 miles on it. Our rack truck goes out every single week with the large bulky pickups. We get about $1,200 a week for those items, and this truck that we'll be replacing doesn't really owe us anything.
Would you mind passing that to the members?
You have it.
Is everybody's
Oh.
mic off except for Paul's?
Thank you.
Cynthia's is on and Paul's.
No, my mic
Oh, it's
is,
off. Just Paul's is off.
because that might be causing the feedback.
Click on that, Bob, and try to mute that. Does that double us up?
That goes, opens up the microphone. I hate that, I don't wanna kill it that they can't hear, then I have a problem.
Is someone in the room also joined on this?
Excuse me?
Is someone in the room also joined on this on their computer?
On the, no, not that I am aware, only you, only.
But
Smack
that
is-
shouldn't be caused, no, I don't think so.
It's usually not this bad, we met last week.
Yeah, because we used a camera in the corner.
Not everyone knows what a rack truck is, and this would be helpful also at town meeting. And I think we should just proceed and do the best we can.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, was that basically your presentation? Did you have any questions, Scott?
No.
Fran? I don't. Does John have a question on the rack truck? I can't hear him.
There's an echo on his end as well, he can't make out what you're saying.
Yeah, he's having a hard time.
Something about a rack truck.
Yeah, do you have your documentation, John?
Yeah, I have it right over here.
Yeah.
That didn't echo.
Paul Jaffoon, who's the superintendent of DPW.
Bob, you need to use the mic.
I'm sorry.
Right, all right, Christina, I'll make out the best next time.
Okay, thank you. Want to see if anybody else has any questions?
Did John have a question? Does Mike have a question?
Michael Horan, do you have a question?
So the last time,
No, but seconding what John says, it's really rough going.
but they can.
Okay.
Sorry.
Without the microphone, 'cause it's picking up.
I don't know why it's rough going.
Anyone in the audience have input or a question?
I was actually.
Curious. I am curious about the 7%. Was there a thing about 7% increase in this? Was there something about that? There was, yeah, was there a quote that had like a 7%? Just to try to understand that. I think it's at the back end of your estimate. It was like handwritten in on the.
Could you find what yours?
Yeah, he's.
Excuse me. Yes, I can answer that. That 7% is 7% from when this gentleman originally priced the body for this truck before last fall's town meeting. So the increase is the 7% for this coming spring.
Anyone in the audience? Mr. Murphy? Name and address, please.
Peter Murphy, 60 Peters Drive. What's the price of the truck?
The truck is 101,000.
What's that?
101,000.
Okay, thank you. I don't have that information, that's why.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Next is Article 21, Town Buildings and Facilities Maintenance and Upgrades. Is that you too?
Yes, it is.
Would you like to tell us, it says 75,000, what kind, it's to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, including but not limited to any of the enterprise funds of the town, or borrow a sufficient sum or sums of money to undertake maintenance, extraordinary maintenance, improvements, repairs, upgrades, modifications, and the like at town-owned buildings and facilities, including, but not limited to, as applicable, professional engineering, architectural services, design, site preparation and demolition, installation, and all other incidental and related costs, or take any other action relative thereto. And I guess we'd like to know where the $75,000 specifically is going.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I believe the town manager would like to say a few words.
Madam Chairman, through you, you're no longer.
No?
Madam Chairman, this was a new line item in the FY24 budget, and the reason for this line item is we've got several buildings in town that are over 100 years old. It's very difficult to forecast or plan or predict when we're going to need unbudgeted maintenance and repair because of the age of the building. So we asked that this article be put in at this time last year. Town meeting concurred. In the first 4 months, we used more than half of this allocated budget line item or capital item on unforeseen and much needed maintenance and repairs. So we'd encourage the committee to support this, given the age of the buildings. If these were brand new buildings, we wouldn't need this line item, but these are very old buildings, and the next major repair is right around the corner, whether it's planned or unplanned. Thank you.
Well, we have a note here that there was no documentation. So this is just in case something happens?
Yes, ma'am. It's a line item based on history. We've had to go back to the FinCom at times for repairs that were unforeseen, unbudgeted, and emergencies. We don't know what is going to be, what this money will be used on, but history tells us and common sense tells us, given the age of the buildings, we're going to need to do preventive maintenance and preventive repairs. By way of a very simple example, as you all know, we had a flood last January, a year ago January. What we didn't know is our walls were going to all start caving down. The two entrances you can see were just painted. All the walls were bubbling and the plaster was falling off. We couldn't have foreseen that, but we needed to repair it. We've got some pride in our buildings and we need to keep them in good repair. That's an example of one against the $75,000.
Well,
Thank you.
Considering that flood, I found it extraordinary that was the same time period as Brockton Hospital had their issue. They're still closed. I mean, what was it, 6 weeks we were back? Well, we were never really closed. But I don't think anyone who walked in the building today would know that anything had ever happened. Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, if we didn't have this money set aside, what would happen? Like, where would it come from?
The only place it could come from is the Emergency Reserve Fund controlled by the Finance Committee. And but it takes time to schedule a meeting. It takes time to get a meeting. They may or may not agree on the use of that money. So we can't start, and there's a long lead time. We started work on that flood at 4:30 in the morning, and it would have taken 48 hours to get a finance committee meeting to transfer that fund from the reserve fund. So it's important to have it. I'm very uncomfortable spending money even in an emergency if we don't have authorization. With this open purchase order, or this warrant article, we have the opportunity to move quickly in the event of emergency. Say the heating system went down, or another brick started falling out of the side of this building, which they're doing right now, and it's not in any capital budget. Yeah. We've got to repair it before the brick falls on somebody's head.
And so in the case with this flood and whatever happened here, we had money set aside for that, or we did not?
We were covered by Maya Insurance, by our insurance coverage, so I got a claim by 5 o'clock in the morning to begin work. The water damage happened months after the account closed out, and we're still arguing with Maya to reimburse us, but you know how that goes.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Good question, thank you.
Any questions, Fran?
Is this money only for emergencies?
Great question. See, that's what I love about Fran. She knows the answer to that question.
I want everybody else to know the answer.
Thank you. It's maintenance and repair. By way of example, painting these stairways. We're Stoughton. We're better than broken down stairways even before the flood happened. So once we did the painting, we're replacing the treads on the floors and making it look very presentable with this money. Having said that, we wouldn't do proactive maintenance until we got to this part of the fiscal year, because you'd hate to spend it on maintenance and then have an emergency. Thank you, Fran. Any other tough questions?
John? Any questions?
I have no questions.
Michael? Questions?
None.
Anyone
in the audience?
Okay, moving on. Is there someone here to speak on the police department capital?
Madam Chair, I don't see anybody here, but I believe I can speak to the requests.
Okay. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, and borrow a sufficient sum of money to purchase capital for the police department or take any other action relative thereto. Cruisers, 3 standard, 1 unmarked for $255,000. Firearms, $160,000. Ballistic vests, 49, $72,000, for a total of $487,000. Make your plea.
Madam Chair, through you, I can speak to all 3 of them from the perspective of there are standard timeframes for replacement of equipment. So they do replace on a rolling basis as a matter of policy, 3 cruisers every year and 1 unmarked cruiser. And that is so they don't get over $100,000 and we start spending money on maintenance and repair that's good money on bad issues. The firearms, I'm going to guess, I think it's 6 years. The firearms have to be changed out, and this happens to be that year. And on the ballistic vest, once again, that's a warranty issue that you don't mess with when it comes to vests. Donna, can you leave for 1 minute, please? I'm almost done. Because I know that she's going to get up here and contradict me. And so that's the total of the $487,000. And as I know the board knows, or the committee knows, it's a recurring investment in our police. You're going to see it next in the fire. If we don't update it, we're out of cycle, we're out of warranty, and that's the reason for these 3 category investments. Happy to have any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chief McNamara, did you have any additional things you want to add, or do you just want to answer questions?
Donna, let me tell you what I said.
Sure.
Just on these 3 items, they're recurring investments every 6 years for the vests and for the firearms, and the cruisers are a standard thing.
Just one correction. The vests are every 5 years required to be replaced. We get a reimbursement also. We apply for the reimbursement afterwards, after we purchase them. So we'll put in for a reimbursement from the state and from the federal government. But we have to front the money. So we bought them 5 years ago. This is coming out as a large number of vests that need to be replaced. So that's why the large number for it. And then the firearms is, we bought the last round in 2018, and it's a replacement after having them for the last 6 years.
Questions, Fran?
No.
Scott?
No.
John?
No questions.
Mike? I have a question. On the firearms, is that 49 also? The same number as the ballistic vests?
No, it's
Pardon me?
80 firearms.
80?
80.
Why only 49 vests?
Because those are only replacing the 49 that need to be replaced. There's more officers in the department than that.
Okay. Questions from the audience? Yes, Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. Jerry McDonald, Precinct 4. Just curious, where do the firearms that are turned in go?
We'll sell them back. Currently, the ones that we have, we'll sell them back, and we don't know what we'll get for a price when we go to sell them back.
Again, who do you sell them back to?
To the firearms, the dealer that we buy them. Yeah, so we buy Glocks, and we'll sell them back to the same firearms dealer. Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. DeFelice? No, that's fine.
It's gonna turn green.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Question I had was on
Name and address.
Ed DeFelice, 200 Ethelway.
Thank you.
Question I had on the firearms. I think it was today or yesterday, Ray, who is the head of the FBI, was talking about he sees a lot of problems, terrorism-type problems. So my question is, do we have any long arms? And if so, do we have a sufficient amount? God forbid that anything ever happened, you don't want to be outgunned.
So yes, we do. I'm not going to tell you how many we have.
No, it's okay. As long as you have them, that's all I was worried about. Yep, thank you.
And they're assigned every shift to specifically trained officers that carry it. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Article 23, Fire Department Capital. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, and/or borrow a sufficient sum of money to purchase capital for the fire department or take any other action relative thereto. Ambulance, $450,000. Ladder 2 refurbishment, $200,000. Incident command vehicle, $90,000. And which of you gentlemen is going to?
I'm absolutely okay with that.
Okay,
So,
please introduce yourself to the public.
Sure, Chief Michael Carroll, the Fire Department. And the Assistant Chief is with me.
Assistant Chief Jackson Makema.
Your name is?
Assistant Chief Jackson Maycomer, Stone Fire.
All right, who's ever making the presentation may
Sure.
begin.
So we're in front of you tonight for 3 capital items. One is an ambulance to replace our 9-year-old ambulance 3 right now, which is at its end of life. The purpose of this is obviously our ambulances are very busy, and our ambulance 3 has multiple problems. It doesn't even, right now, it doesn't even have air conditioning in the back for patients. So, and this all falls into our vehicle rotation policy and master policy that was presented and accepted by both Select Board and FinCom for a number of years ago. The second would be a incident command vehicle to replace our, I believe it's a 2014 vehicle, 10-year-old vehicle, which originally started out as our shift command vehicle. It's got a lot of hard miles on it, and quite honestly, we cannot wait to move that one along. It's got a lot of issues with it. And then third would be a refurbishment of ladder 2, which is interesting, but it does add 15 years of life to our ladder. The difficulty with ladder trucks right now is approximately a 3 to 4 year wait, even if we were to get one new. And the prices are unnerving, to say the least. So we think the refurbishment is a good idea of basically they take the whole truck down to nuts and bolts and they rebuild it. And they are pretty much guaranteeing us another 15 years added to that, which I think is a smart move for the town. So I'll accept any questions.
Did you want to add anything?
Just to dovetail what Chief Carroll said, again, Jackson Makema, Assistant Chief, Stoughton Fire. Our primary frontline ladder truck will be 14 years old this year. That's our primary ladder truck. Our reserve ladder truck is 35 years old, so it's prudent, to...
We'll start with John. Any questions?
No questions.
Mike?
Nope.
Fran?
No.
Scott?
No.
I have a question. What happens to the ambulance we're replacing?
The ambulance we're replacing, we can look at having it as a 4th, but I really don't think it's reasonable or financially prudent to do that.
And how long does refurbishment take?
So that is actually a 6-month process, from what I understand, which is a little concerning because if anybody does or doesn't know, our ladder 2, our main truck, was in a accident, was cut off at Pleasant in Lincoln, and went out for a while. We tried to run that 1988 ladder truck for a while. She did well for a little bit, but then she went back out of service. And I was scrambling. I had to reach out to a lot of area chiefs to see if we could even get a loaner, to no avail. So this time we'll have a plan in place. That was sort of an emergency type thing. So of having maybe a loaner, and I did look into it, and we could probably do that very easily for the 6 months.
And the incident command vehicle, the one we have now, what happens to that?
That one has to go. It'll probably be on a trade. I hardly think we'll get anything for it, but we'll just use it as a trade and maybe pay for the light package or something on this, something small.
Questions from the audience? Yes,
Madam Chair, well, I know the committee's well aware of the work of the fire department. I just want to let the public know that although this is a big number, $740,000 in 1 year on a capital budget, the fact is that this department generates over $3 million a year between ambulance receipts and grants that goes right into the general fund, which comes out the other end in the term free cash, which is what we'll likely be using for most of our capital budget. So I know the committee's aware, just want to make sure the public was aware.
thank you. Questions? Yes, Mr. Murphy?
Peter Murphy, Precinct 2, 60 Peters Drive. Is this the ladder truck that we got when the day bin Laden was taken care of?
That's correct, Peter.
Okay, so that ladder truck came in case people don't know. I think we got that through a grant. It was over $1 million to purchase that vehicle.
That's correct. We got that through the Assistance to Firefighters grant through the FEMA.
Money well spent. Thank you.
Mr. DeFelice, you'd like to speak?
Yes, I'd just like to comment on the ambulances. And I would like to ask the chief, I've heard that the occupants of the hotel, I guess it's Sonesta,
That's out of order.
well, the point is, no, I didn't say who was there, what they were, I'm
This
just,
request was put in way before that happened. So
okay,
it's out of order.
but my point is,
Out of order, sir.
if you have, they must have a lot of runs.
Quiet, you'll have to leave.
All right, fine.
If you have questions for the chief, he's at the station, give him a call. Okay, that is fine. You have a right to the information, but it's not part of this hearing.
Mr. Ventresco has a...
Oh, yes.
Hi, Peter Ventresco. Oh, sorry, thank you. Hi, Peter Ventresco, Precinct 8, 587 Kent Street. All right, Chief, this $200, $200,000. How good is the undercarriage of this truck? Everything's sound?
So there is some surface rust. When we had to have the waterway that comes up the ladder replaced when it got into that accident. I don't know whether anybody knows, we were cut off at Lincoln, and unfortunately they diverted out of the other oncoming traffic, but it did hit a telephone pole. Anyways, it went out. It was worked on for quite a while, but there is surface rust on that where the ladder jacks come out, but also a little bit underneath. It will take care of all that.
It'll take care of all
Yep.
that. But the main chassis itself is sound. There's no
Yeah,
rust.
it's sound, but this refurbishment takes care of
All right,
everything. Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next is Article 24, Sewer Capital Inflow and Infiltration. Oh, why?
Well, I was going to just ask her, but... Madam Chair, would it be possible for us to talk about civil service while the
Okay.
chiefs are
Well,
together?
both of you are here, so let me see. Where are we? That's on the next page. 49. Okay, let me find it, and then I shall read it. And thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sometimes I have my blinders on. I thought they were here for something else. 49.
I don't believe there was any, we didn't get any documentation.
Well, I'm not looking, I'm just
Okay.
looking for the article, because I read the article.
Oh, you want it? Want my warrant?
Okay, I found it.
You got it?
Civil service revocation. To see if the town will vote to rescind its affirmative vote pursuant to Article 7 of the June 4th, 1906 town meeting, by which the town accepted Chapter 31, Section 48 of the general laws and amendments thereof, in parenthesis, civil service.
We actually do.
For its I remember that meeting. For its regular and permanent members of the Stoughton Police Department, or take any other action thereto. And further, to rescind its affirmative vote pursuant to Article 2 of the March, well, this one maybe I do remember, March 26, 1935. Town meeting by which the town accepted Chapter 31, Section 48 of the general laws and amendments thereof, civil service, for its regular and permanent members of the Stoughton Fire Department, or take any other action thereto. And further, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to submit a proposed special act to the General Court of the Commonwealth as follows. Special act, an act authorizing the town of Stoughton to exempt all Stoughton police officers and all Stoughton firefighters at all ranks from civil service. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and General Court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1. Notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary, all of the positions of all police officers and firefighters in all ranks in the police and fire departments of the town of Stoughton, excluding the chief of police, previously exempted through the Massachusetts Act of 1978. Chapter 474, and further excluding the chief of the fire department, previously exempted through the Massachusetts Acts of 1997. Chapter 30 shall be exempt from Chapter 31 of the general laws. Section 2. Section 1 of this act shall not impair the current civil service status of any person holding a position as a sworn member of the police department and a sworn member of the fire department of the town of Stoughton on the effective date of this act, and only shall be applied to appointments and promotions prospectively as of the date of the annual town meeting of May blank 2024. Section 3. This act shall take effect upon passage. And I guess the best news is the estimated cost is zero. And I don't know what order you want to be recognized in. They do mention police first.
Sure, I think.
Okay.
I'll just say that since I started in this department many years ago, the number of applicants each year have continued to dwindle to just last year of only 22 Stoughton residents that were willing to take on and potentially accept a position if offered from the civil service list. That is not a significant amount of candidates for us to get quality candidates from that pool of just 22. And we have had a significant issue hiring, not just locally. Policing at every level all across the country has had a significant challenge in hiring, and this is just another obstacle that we need to overcome. But civil service has been a big obstacle to hiring good quality candidates for policing positions that are vacant. And we believe that leaving civil service, we will have the ability to compete with other communities, not just in Norfolk County that have already left civil service, because there's been a significant amount, but across the Commonwealth that have left civil service in order to get good quality candidates that are interested in this position.
The fire side?
Sure, so just to build off what Chief McNamara said, what I believe is civil service, my thought is that civil service really handcuffs us as a department and as a entity. And under the same conditions, the police have fire. Well, let's use examples, right? When I took the exam in 1993, there were 35,000 candidates signed up. On the last entry-level exam, there were 5,000 across the state. It's really dwindled. It's an antiquated system. It doesn't fit. I feel like we can do a better job at processing and hiring good candidates than what civil service is giving. It's overloaded. Some of the laws are really unfair. A good example I like to use is the fact that for any promotional exam, you have to have 4 candidates for that exam. The 4 candidates have to come from the rank testing for the exam. So, for example, if you have a deputy's exam, you want a deputy's exam, and they only come up every year on a date. If we need that, we need 4 captains to sign up for that exam. We have 6 captains on the department, so you need basically 3/4 of your captains to sign up. Boston, who has 56 captains, only needs 4 captains. They won't even scale it, and it's legislative. I've asked for it to be changed. They will not change it. So if I don't have those 4 captains, we have to wait another year to go by. Now, you have men and women of the fire department studying for months on end to take this promotional exam, only to find out that exam is canceled because only 3 candidates signed up. It's unfair. What we can do is we can set those dates. We can have exams that are really, catered to the Stoughton Fire Department, Stoughton Fire Department's policies, the town of Stoughton, Stoughton buildings, right? I can use that to do, assessments. So we really get a better candidate, I believe. Also on the hiring, we do hire from paramedics, but if a list is coming out in April 1st, and I guarantee you, when I put in for it, there may be, a couple of paramedics to choose from, but I could have a good kid from Stoughton who is a paramedic that didn't take the civil service exam back in the fall. I can't hire him. So he just got out of his medic school. He didn't take the civil service exam. He really wants to work for Stoughton Fire Department. Good kid, good family, grew up in Stoughton. Can't hire him. So, but if we get out of civil service, I think that takes that handcuffs off and we can hire him. So I think that's all, unless the AC has something. I think that's.
Do you have anything to add?
I agree with Chief Carroll and Chief McNamara's assessment. It's an antiquated system, and unfortunately, it leaves us behind. We're looking to fill 5 positions now, and we're waiting. We've been waiting 6 months for a new civil service list to come out. It's time for us to modernize. We can be a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive department that fits the town of Stoughton. The time's come to modernize our hiring and promotional process. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add one more.
Oh, wait a sec. Is part of the presentation or part of the public? Part of the presentation. All right, sir, I recognize you.
Yeah, I would never speak as part of the public, just as part of the team. Madam Chairman, the superintendent pointed out in his presentation last week that good people aren't applying to be teachers. You've got to go and find them. You got to recruit them. You got to poach them from other towns. The same thing is true with police and fire. If you don't get a quality crop of applicants and you still hire them to fill quotas, we're stuck with oftentimes problems for 30 years. You can predict who they're going to be. But civil service prevents us from going out and hiring the best and the best. We're prohibited from doing that. Also, until recently with this new collective bargaining agreement, if you just indulge me for a second, we were well below the mean, well below the median in terms of compensation. So even if we could recruit, we couldn't get them because of civil service. With these new CBAs for the police and fire, at least if we remove the constraints of civil service, we're at least competitive in the marketplace, and we can go out and recruit the best and the brightest. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. John, questions?
No questions.
Mike, questions?
No questions.
Fran?
No questions.
Scott?
Yes. Are there any drawbacks to this? Like, do we lose out on anything, funding or anything like that because of this?
I don't believe there's any funding really tied to being in or a part of civil service. I really don't. I think that they've seen, maybe back then it was easier to proctor exams or whatnot, but the world has changed. I think we have much better ways of doing it, and civil service has not caught up to that. I mean, that's my belief.
We're hindered because of, if you don't take the test when it's only assigned once a year for police now. It used to be every 2 years. So we're hindered by that exam. Then we're hindered another 2 months before they certify that exam. Then you request a list, you hire off that list. It ends up taking a significant time frame.
Yeah.
And we get set further and further behind compared to all the other departments that have already left.
Yeah.
Civil service, and they're moving light years, and they don't have significant vacancies because they've removed that obstacle.
Yeah. It also seems like it disincentivizes your people, right? Doesn't give them anything. Their promotions and all that stuff is all dragged out. So
And if
that
you
kinda
have a
sucks.
candidate that's on the list that's not a good quality candidate, we spend 40 to 60 hours investigating their background, then creating a document, sending it off to civil service to say these are all the reasons why they're not a worthy candidate to be hired, but they could overrule us.
Whoa. Well,
And that bypass letter will have, I mean, I've testified and I've run hearings for the town when we bypassed a candidate. My 3-ring binder that I brought in to defend the department's decision, you know, it was an all-day affair hearing that we conducted in the commission, all to bypass a candidate that should never have been even considered.
wow.
And would not have been considered if we were left civil service.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Questions from the audience?
Anybody online?
Anyone online? Okay, I think they're heard. I've also been asked, thank you, gentlemen from the fire department, to take up Article 32, the police station expansion and renovation, so that all of the chiefs will just leave us Indians.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Considering that last article about indigenous folks, I'm going to be, some of my relatives will contact me.
Police station, too.
Yeah, so we're on Article 32, and you have someone, a guest with you?
Yes. He's stepping up to the plate right now.
Welcome, Jack.
Yeah.
We recognize Chief McNamara. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Glenn Gallred, Dorr and Whittier Architects. I worked on the public safety buildings facility study as it started out as and has now become 2 fire station projects, and hopefully for Chief McNamara, a police station in the next couple of years.
Okay, I need to read the article, and then we'll get to you. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, or borrow a sum of money for the preparation of design documents for the construction, equipping, and furnishing of an expansion and renovation of the existing police station located at 26 Rose Street, including but not limited to professional engineering, architectural, and owner's project manager services, plans for demolition and removal of the existing buildings or portions thereof, and site preparation, including any required testing and/or investigations and all other incidental and related expenses, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into any agreements, including contracts for terms in excess of 3 years, and to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the purposes of the vote taken hereunder, or take any other action related thereto. And it says the estimated cost is $300,000. Okay. Ready for your presentation.
Okay, I'll start with, the needs for the police department haven't changed since the annual town meeting did vote a couple of years ago to look at a public safety building committee and a public safety building. That changed in the course of the town, and the needs for the fire department rose to the top, understandably so. The needs for the police department have not changed. We still have the needs that are existing, and we have worked with Pomeroy and Associates back when it was a Public Safety Building Committee, and so we're looking to expand on that knowledge that they already have, and with this article, to move forward to address the needs of the police department at 26 Rose Street. At the location, I just would like to remind people that there are many people in the fall town meeting, at that town meeting, that spoke about the need for an addition to the police station and understanding our needs, and I would just like, this would begin the steps to process that.
In your presentation?
Pretty simple. The chief did a nice job summarizing it, but what we took away from the original study was that the existing space is nearly half, in an ideal world, of the space they would need or function best with. But the short version is we were able to pare that down and kind of right-size it to about a 12 or 14,000 square foot addition to the existing building, with some renovations and reworkings of the existing police station. The goal with this study, or updating the study, is to kind of go back and look at that test information, the test fits, the programming, which is the size of the spaces and the number of spaces, and kind of update that, get to a point where we understand the site better with some geotechnical survey work, right, to understand foundation design, and with the implicit goal to get a schematic design light or an advanced feasibility study concept cost estimate for fall town meeting, at which point we would turn that over for you guys to consider and to vote on.
Question, Fran?
No
Scott?
question.
I have one in my head, but I can't pull it out yet.
John?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. This expansion, is this gonna take over the municipal parking lot that's next door to the station?
Yeah, the proposal in one way or another would expand out to that side on the lot, whether we elevated the building up so that cars could be underneath and not lose too much parking, or perhaps gain parking, are among the many options. But that's why it's important to sort of dust off the previous study and see what can be made to fit efficiently on the site.
Okay, and this expansion, is this gonna take care of the needs that the police station's gonna have in the future? Or are we gonna be talking about building another station in the future, or is this gonna take care of that issue?
I would like to think that it would take care of the issue. When they built the building in 1998, they built it for that time frame and not looking towards the future, and the town has expanded in many aspects since 1998 that they did not plan for. Many open spaces have become apartment buildings, and industrial parks have been built out, and our needs for the department have expanded significantly. So I would like to say that we would think that far in the future. That's our goal. But I can't say with any certainty. Depends on what we're able to build.
And what type of space is gonna go into this expansion?
I guess I'd ask you to clarify what you're looking for in that.
The office space, or is it gonna be community rooms, or what?
It would be expanding on locker rooms to begin with. The locker rooms aren't sufficient for the staffing that we have currently right now. I don't have enough lockers in the women's locker room, the men's locker room as well. So that portion of the building has to be expanded on, and there's a number of things in the program that need to be built out.
Right.
It was to my understanding at town meeting, we already gave the funds for locker room expansion.
Not an expansion. It was it's a small renovation to add 6 lockers to the women's locker room. So that's where we are right now. That's what we need right now. That's not hiring another female officer in our department. And I hope that not to be the case.
Well, the point I'm trying to get at is that it's always going to be an issue. Space is always going to be an issue, no matter if it's an expansion or a new station. You know, to me, it's never going to be enough. And that's,
May I, Chief?
thank you.
John, you touch on a couple of good questions. I think the chief was modest in stating the need for space, but from administrative offices to detainee processing and operations and just simple file storage, they were tight probably the week they moved in. And to your first question, like with the fire department, we try and design 9 or 10 or 11% more square footage than is the current need now to allow for some growth, but that's to be refined in this next couple of months if you guys approve the refinement of the study, and that's the goal.
Anything else, John?
No, thank you.
Mike? Questions, Mike? Rick?
No, we're up. Oh,
Right in.
excuse me.
We already went through you folks, right?
No.
Oh, yes, Mike, question?
No, that.
Oh, okay. Obviously, there's a lot of things you're going to be looking at, and are you going to offer one plan or an option or two?
Another great question. It's like you've been through this. The goal is to have...
Brother and sister. My sisters, the women's locker room used to be the same room as the women's prisoner room. When my sister started, she was all by herself, 50 guys and her. Sounds like a dream, but she says it wasn't.
Yeah. To your question, though, the goal is about halfway through these, once we've got an idea of really the right size spaces and the quantity of spaces and the adjacencies. You know, we generate these diagrams to understand which spaces should be near each other for operational efficiency. Then we'll have a couple of ideas that will bounce off the police department, and if there's a broader working group or building committee, we would review with the whole team. So the goal is by fall town meeting to have a pretty well defined need and a design. I mean, it won't be photoreal renderings and all this sort of fancy design. It's really enough to get the ball in the next step.
And I don't really see the harm in using that parking lot. We do make a couple of bucks selling it to the commuters, but we just had an MAPC study that found that we have plenty of parking in this area. It's not like those are golden spots. And I think the general feeling of town meeting has been for the last few years that the idea of a public safety building wouldn't fly. The feeling was that a 1926 building needed to be replaced. That this building, I believe you said 1998. So we're not talking the distant past, but that, as the chief pointed out, this isn't 1998. And it hasn't been for a while. And if we're going to recruit people, whether we have civil service or not, which is in another article, we have to realize that if you dread walking in that building, we're not going to be able to recruit anybody of the quality that we want. People do need a safe, sanitary, comfortable workspace, especially when they're working with people that aren't safe or sanitary or comfortable. Any questions from the audience? We'll start with you, Mr. Ventresco.
Peter Ventresco, 587 Canton Street, Precinct 8. I got a couple of questions. I'm a little confused here. Is this just going to be to redesign the existing building or redesign that and put an addition on too? An addition too? Oh, that's good,
So
okay.
The short answer is both.
Okay,
Renovation of
that's
some of
good,
the-
because they need the more space.
Yep.
But, you know, I'm a firm believer of rehab buildings, because I've done that a lot. But also, I noticed on your list of things they're going to do here, I don't see anything about pumping chemicals into the ground to seal the old foundation on the police station right now from water seeping in. And that's something that should be really looked at, because there's no sense in rehabbing a building and you still have the water problems coming in. And that can be done because I've worked with that kind of chemicals before. It diverts the water. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else along here? Mr. DeFelice?
The question I have is that, seeing some people are concerned about that parking lot, have you thought about going vertical? You know, put some steel, even if you have it on the outside of the building? Would that be helpful to you?
Yeah, that is one of the options that even at a very diagrammatic concept level we looked at, is basically having an addition that would go out over part of the parking lot, so that parking, or maybe more importantly, staff or cruiser parking, could happen underneath a structure like that.
I guess I was thinking more of adding a second story to the building, or perhaps even a third if necessary. I mean, I think that could be done. Whether it's a good idea, you're the person to ask.
We'll look at that. Our structural engineer will get in there and tell us what we can do cost effectively, and our project manager will keep us honest. But that's the goal, is to look at all the options that work for the space they need.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Questions over here? Questions? Any other questions? Questions from the public? I think we should introduce your colleague.
I'm so sorry.
We're skipping around.
Yeah, excuse my tardiness. I was at another meeting, and
Well, I was a teacher, so you need a note from your mother.
I might need a pass because I got here pretty quick. But my name is Richard Pomeroy, and my firm is Pomeroy Associates, and we're owners project managers. And we've been representing the town for several years now, and we're involved with the fire station along with Dore and Whittier. And we'll be involved with this project during the study phase and getting ready for town meeting.
Thank you. And we'll be seeing you again, it seems like in the fall. Anything else you want to add before we go on to the next article? Thank you for coming. The moderator
Thank you.
has informed me I should show some professional courtesy to our superintendent and do Article 36.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I warmed it up for you.
It's all good. Chair online, Captain Weiss.
Hey, Chief.
Let me read Article 36. She said. This is going to be fun at town meeting. Almost there, Superintendent.
Page 31 for you.
I'm on 33, I'll get there. But thank you, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome, Madam Chair.
It's my own fault for taking things out of order. To see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, and/or transfer from available funds in the Treasury, if any, for the purposes of hiring a professional school security consultant to complete a thorough and comprehensive safety security audit of all 8 school buildings. And the estimated cost is $20,000. Make your presentation, please.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Thank you to Mr. Coulter for asking Mr. Mullen to ask you. I think I was too scared of asking you as a former student at the Jones School when you were there. So
I still intimidate after a quarter of a century of
I
retirement.
have to tell you, you do. Also with us tonight is the chair of the school committee, Ms. Weiss, is online. So we don't get into a lot of details about safety audits around schools. As you know, the open meeting law actually allows for us to go into executive session with the school committee and select board. But this has been something that I've done in the past in bringing in professionals around school safety that know schools. So we're looking at everything from technology to entranceways to any potential areas that there's a potential weakness. That will be shared in collaboration with the police and fire department. Just to let you know, we have a current working team of police, fire, and schools. They're meeting on a monthly basis. The three chiefs, we put it together, and then we gave it to our secondary folks to begin that work. And that's a lot around those major issues that we hear in the news today. So we are not only doing the work, but we're also setting up to practice the work. In this particular case, we'll get some more information around our safety items that we have within the district. Interesting, just today, we were doing a review of the high school system, which is in terms of software, is one of the only ones that has that. And as you know, we also have a building committee that's working on safety as part of the new building project, if in fact that's accepted by town meeting and then the taxpayer. So our goal here is to have this all done within our 8 buildings.
So have you put anything out to bid, or did you just get some quotes for the town meeting?
Yeah, so there's only a few firms out there that do this type of work. So we basically made some phone calls and asked right around what it would cost. This was as soon as I came on board in the summertime. There is a couple of local firms that are recognized out of Providence and Massachusetts that do the work, so we'll be reaching out to them. It's over 10,000, less than 100,000, so we'll probably do our work with some of the companies that are, if not based in Massachusetts, have done the reports in Massachusetts, because we're very specific to the things we want.
Ms. Weiss, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, Joe covered it Dr. Bayetta covered it very well. Thank you.
Questions, Fran?
No, no questions.
Scott?
No.
John, questions?
No question.
Michael, questions?
No questions?
Audience, public, questions? Any questions from the audience on the screen? Well, you can fly.
I thank you so much. Thank you.
You've been promoted.
Thank you. Peter, I'm sorry, Peter Ventresco has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know you didn't see me. That's all right.
Well, you've got to raise your hand.
I did, but you were looking the other way.
Hand in the corner.
Peter Ventresco, 587 Canton Street, Precinct 8. I have one question on the door security. I see it says 3, I don't know where I saw it, 3 kind of hinges or something. But if the door doesn't close, let's just say it doesn't close. So how's somebody in wherever's all this information gets funneled to, how do they know if that door is locked or not locked?
So I think you're talking more about the vestibule situation, not the security audit. That's a different project that's also part of our requests. It's not part of this
Oh,
request.
it's not, what, the door's not part of this, the safety?
No.
The doors are, but I think what you may be confusing our request for $90,000 for vestibule upgrades in 3 schools. And then the security audit, which looks at, yes, it looks at doors, but it goes beyond that. We're looking at safety such as cyber. We're looking at software. We're looking at our protocols.
All right, so any questions I have for safety of the door, I should,
That'll have to come up
another time, all right.
There's the
All right,
article,
thank
Peter.
you.
And I'm sorry I didn't notice you sooner. Thank you. Superintendent Bailey.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent.
Did you have any other special requests?
Does anybody else have any other special requests?
Yeah, I know, but I think it's only fair to continue
Yeah, I would start.
with the common folk. The folk that don't have titles in front of their names, other than Mr. or Ms. So, without any further ado, Article 24, Sewer Capital Inflow and Infiltration. Now, I just had that.
Page 21.
Yeah, well,
Take your time.
we got unpaginated here somewhere. Oh, goody.
I gotta look that word up.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, or borrow or fund from retained earnings a sufficient sum of money to continue improving the sewer system and reduce infiltration and inflow of groundwater and water from other sources, including but not limited to investigation of sources of water loading from rain leaders or sump pumps, but not limited to, as applicable, professional engineering, architectural services, design, site preparation and demolition, installation, and all other incidental and related costs. And the estimated cost is $400,000. Welcome.
Thank you. Phil McNulty, Water and Sewer Superintendent. So this article is very repetitive. It's each of my 9 years here now if this article has been presented, and I think probably another 10 before that. What it does is the goal is to maintain the sewer system, the pipes, and the sewer manholes from leakage and structural defects, and it covers investigation, design, and then construction, and repeats every year. Without doing this, clean water adds to the dirty water, and it increases the rate that the metered sewer increases at the edge of town. So it keeps our MWRA fees lower and maintains capacity in the sewer system so that we can continue to develop. The program works on a 75-25 grant town contribution. What that means is MWRA, if we borrow $400,000, MWRA kicks in $300,000, and we essentially pay $100,000. We have to put the money up front, and they reimburse us after the project is completed. So, with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions, John?
No question.
Michael?
No.
Guess not. Scott?
No.
No.
And I really don't have any questions. This is your typical year after year. But you did mention at the FinCom, how much of the town, your goal is every year to do like 10%?
Well, it's, we prioritize. What we find in our investigations, we prioritize, meaning the biggest structural defects or the biggest increases that we see in leakage. So we address those and prioritize those as the money is available. One thing that was discussed at the FinCom meeting is actually putting this in the operating budget, since it is such a repetitive article. So that may actually happen next year.
That comes up every time that this comes up.
Yeah.
Oh, you had no questions. Any questions from the audience? Yes, Peter. Murphy.
Peter Murphy, 60 Peters Drive, Precinct 2. Now, when you say that you're asking for $400,000, MWRA is going to kick back $300,000. Now, does that $300,000 get on top of the $400,000, so you spend $700,000, or do you actually only spend $100,000?
Well, there's different ways to look at it. Either
that's why I'm asking.
In any case, it's a 75-25. So if you put $1 million project out there, MWRA is going to pay $750,000, and we're going to pay $250,000. So each year these monies are accumulated in accounting,
Right.
and they're stacked up. So we try to maintain at least $1 million so that we can put $1 million project out each year. And so, but like I said, we have to front the money, and then when it's completed, they reimburse us. So.
Right, so which leads to my next question. When they reimburse you, does that go back into this fund, the enterprise fund, or does it go into the town general fund?
It goes back into this fund with interest. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Oh, yes, Mr. Ventresco.
Repeat.
Thank you. Peter Ventresco, 587 Street, Precinct 8. All right, on one of these pages here, it says inflow, rainwater, and surface runoff enters the sewer system. How are we getting that in there?
So inflow would be sump pumps. It would be a roof leader connected to the sewer system. It would be a catch basin connected to the sewer system. Whereas infiltration is considered cracks in the pipe,
Yeah, I
a
can
leaky
understand that.
manhole. So
But that cracks in the pipe, you're going to pick that up every year when you run the camera through.
Yep, well,
All right, so the other, follow up on what you're saying here. The catch basins, how's that stormwater get from the catch basin to the sewer?
just pipes.
Huh?
Piped.
Yeah, but it's two systems, the drain system's one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've heard of combined sewer overflows in Boston, Quincy.
Yeah, but that was years ago, but they
it's
all out. I thought we took care of that years ago, and now you're saying we still have that problem.
Well, it's considered as a possibility. Right now, as far as inflow is concerned, the most likely is sump pumps. The second most likely is roof leaders, and thirdly would be catch basins.
Well, the same thing with the sump pumps and people using French drains. I thought that was they put smoke into the system, and whoever's doing that, the smoke's going to come up their vent pipes. So what happened to that? It didn't work out, or that was before you? But I don't see why we're doing it. We still have that problem if we took care of it before.
So it only takes one to sink you, really, because one sump pump out of 10,000 houses will add a lot of flow. So even though a condition that was 10 years ago and you took care of it doesn't mean it stays that way.
Okay.
Forever.
All right, the one more question, and I'm done. How much water you think gets in from a manhole in the street, where it's usually the manholes on the crown of the road, so the water should be running away from the manholes?
So after a storm event, we can actually see it on our SCADA computer by the cycles of the pump stations. Anything from a roof or directly after a storm event, the pump stations, their flow increases double or triple right away. Some pumps is more of a groundwater issue, so those kind of things happen seasonally. In the summer it dies down, and then when the groundwater is high in the spring.
Yeah, that part I understand. But my last question was, how much water you think gets in from a manhole cover, a sewer manhole?
Oh,
it's in the middle of the street on the crown of the road. The water should be running away.
Yeah, so it depends on the frame and cover, and the gaps around the edge and the bolt holes. So each one's a little bit different, but it's a cumulative type of thing where every little bit adds up.
Anyone else with a question? Yes, Mr. DeFelice.
Yeah, the question I had was, you're talking about water coming down through the drain pipes and so forth. Would it make any sense for the town to require new construction to pipe into underground dry wells on site? Maybe that would help. That might help you a lot.
That actually is the current code, Board of Health code, rather than pump from your basement directly into the drainage system. It should actually go to a system like you're saying, like a leaching dry well type of thing.
I was thinking even the downspouts coming off. That's one of the issues here too, right? Water coming off the roofs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone with questions? Anyone in the public on the screen? Excuse me. Okay, did I hear someone?
Said no.
Okay. So next, you're still in the hot seat. Article 26, Pratt's Court. No, it'd be Article 25, Water and Sewer Capital, I'm sorry. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, and/or borrow or fund from retained earnings a sufficient sum of money to design, permit, install, and construct, and purchase capital improvement items and projects for the Water and Sewer Department. Just kind of like a redundancy there. It says department. New jet truck, $350,000. 2 F-250 work trucks with plows, $154,000. Those are replacements. And 1 new F-250 work truck with plow, $82,000.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So you outlined 4 vehicles. The jet truck is part of the investigation and when we get emergency calls for clogs. When we investigate, we jet the pipe first so we can get a clean look at the pipe, and then we videotape it. So that the truck we currently use for that is from 1996, so it's approaching 30 years old, and it's just time to replace it. We would hope to hang on to that as a backup, because these vehicles, they work hard and they break down, so to have a backup wouldn't be a bad thing. As far as the pickup trucks, 2 of them, as you said, are replacements for the 2014 diesels that we have a lot of problems with. So we would go to a gas-type vehicle, F-250s or Chevy 2500s, and with plow packages, as you said. The third vehicle is an additional vehicle to the fleet, just because we have a new addition to the department.
Questions, John?
I don't have any questions because I can't hear anything what's going on.
I didn't understand what he
He
said.
can't hear very well what's.
Oh,
John mentioned as a committee member, he can't hear very well what's going on in the room here.
I think we've established we're doing the best we can, John.
I know you are, but I don't know. I don't even know what article we're on because I don't.
I'm sorry, Article 25, Water and Sewer Department, equipment, a jet truck, and 3 F-250 work trucks with plows.
I mean, I have my volume set up the highest it will go. I still can't make out what's going on. What's being said. Okay, thank you.
Michael, any questions?
No questions.
Fran?
No questions.
Scott? No. Okay, I know what an F-250 looks like. What's a jet truck look like?
So it's a 500-gallon water tank truck that has a 800 feet of hose on it, 1-inch hose, and it has a nozzle on it, and you basically feed it down into the sewer manholes and into the pipe. And if there's a resident calls for a clog at their house or in the main, then we would go out with that vehicle and jet it out with the nozzles. High speed, high pressure jetting activity to clear it out.
Now, how often would you use a truck like that? In a month?
Almost every day. If it's not for an emergency, like the emergencies are maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, hopefully, knock on wood, not more than that. But other than that, we use it to do the investigation side of things just about every day.
Okay. Questions from the audience? Yes, Mr. Ventresco?
Again, Peter Ventresco, 587 Canton Street. I have a question on all 3 articles, but anyways, but the pickup trucks, you're saying work truck. You're saying it's a work truck because you're using it for work, or is a manufacturer labeled as a W3, a work truck? Usually when they do that, it's a stripped down. It's a truck. It's new, but it's stripped down. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles. So that's my question. Is this truck going to have all the bells and whistles that we don't need if it's a work truck? There's a big difference of price. You talk 20 grand.
But the only thing we leave off is, things like work boxes and so forth, mats and any kind of lettering and stuff like that. We leave that off, but, it's something you typically see off the lot.
Well, off the lot, you see what the manufacturer calls a WT work truck, all the way up to the high models. that's my question. When you got work truck here, the department's calling it a work truck because you use it for work and not pleasure, or is the manufacturer calling it a work truck? Because if the manufacturer calls it a work truck, it's going to be like 20, 25 grand cheaper than the top of the line that has everything.
Well, I would say, it's not the bottom, it's not basic, but it's not the top of the line. It's somewhere in the
Well, I think it should be a work truck that the manufacturer suggests that's what it is. So you got a truck, it's got the heat, it's got the radio, it's got everything, but it doesn't have a lot of this fancy stuff which we don't need.
Well,
you need the plow. That's got nothing to do with the truck, basic truck, the way it comes.
Yeah, we have the light bars because we're going to plow with these, so we're going to have the.
Yeah, but that's above and beyond what the manufacturer calls a work truck.
Yeah, we add that in the spec, though.
All right, and the other thing is the jet truck. I'm all in favor of that. You need that.
Thank you. Mr. Zemanian?
Good evening. For the record, Mark Semanian, 5 Low Avenue. Through you, Madam Chair, to Phil. It's a little bit of a related question. I had heard the public hearing at one of the meetings. They blend together now, don't they? When you had given us some initial estimates on the truck. Curiosity, any chance you've gotten any updates from then, or are we still looking at more or less the same numbers?
So I can say we're working on it, and I don't know if Fran wants to jump in, and she might know more than I do at this point.
I'm Fran. I'm also Fran Brutnady, the procurement officer for the town. We do have a new purchasing agent in town who's assisting. One of his main goals is to service the town departments and to help them do the research on the field. I've been out today. I was not in work today, but I can get an update.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Thank you. And if I may ask sort of a follow-up question to a previous speaker's, what he was referring to is work trucks typically don't have heated seats and power windows, things like that. I think.
Okay, no crosstalk.
I think the question that I'd be seeking to answer is it defined as a stripper like that, or is it going to be a base model that they have on the lot?
It's not going to have heated seats. I can tell you that.
I think we're asking for too much detail. He's not going to be buying the truck anyway. It's going to be put out to bid. So
Understood. Thank you, madam.
it may be that the heated seats are zero because they're trying to get rid of them off the lot. If I was plowing snow, I wouldn't mind a heated seat. Anyone else with a question?
Madam Chair, could I ask a question?
I'll recognize the moderator.
Well, as a member of the public, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Bob Mullen, 19 Clover Lane. Hey, just quick question, Phil. Are any of these trucks going to be allowed to be taken home by the drivers? Are they going to stay overnight in Stoughton?
The only people who take trucks home are the foremen who are on emergency calls. So that any other employee besides that, no.
How many foremen do you have?
3 at the moment, yeah.
Okay, so you, plus you, 4 trucks are taken home?
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Don't go anywhere. Now we're on Article 26, Pratt's Court Water Treatment Improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the Treasury, if any, and/or borrow a sum of money for the purpose of financing the design, permitting, and construction of upgrades and improvements of the water treatment plant for the Pratt's Court water supply sources, required for the treatment of per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, in said water supply sources. Filter media change out for iron and manganese removal, install 3 new well pumps, and all incidental and related costs. $4,440,000. Will the witness?
So pass the hat through you, Mr. Chairman. So this article was presented as a $1.5 million project last year and taken off at the last minute because there's new PFAS regulations coming out that went from 20, and any day now it's going to be, the draft regulation is going to turn final, and it's going to be down to 4. So this particular station, Pratt's Court, falls between those two numbers. So we took it off last year, added it this year, same project, but added PFAS treatment to the project. The number is 4.4, as you said, and will be over the last year. We've applied to the state drinking water, SRF, and DEP for funding to get on the intended use plan, which will entitle the town to up to 38% grant loan forgiveness and 0% interest loans to do this job. In the end, we're going to end up with PFAS treatment, and we're going to increase our flow from this particular station from 130 gallons a minute up to 500 gallons a minute. So we will be able to extract the water that we're now permitted for but can't get because of the screen in the well. The existing well is 40 years old and has gotten clogged up with iron and manganese over the years. So hence the new 3 wells to take over. It's now be a well field rather than just an individual well. And I think that about summarizes. If you have any questions.
Fran?
I don't have any questions.
Scott?
Yeah, so the PFAS removal method, is that being used in other towns?
Yes. Each town has their own. This intended use plan that I referred to, it's publicly available information. I have it. You can scan that list and you see Sharon on there. You'll see Easton on there. A lot of the surrounding towns have the same issue. This 4.4 million, it sounds like a big number. It's on the low side. Sharon, for example, is spending $40 million on their PFAS plant. Foxborough, Easton, millions, tens of millions of dollars. So far we've picked off 2 of them. Muddy Pond being the first, which will be constructed this summer, or start construction, and then following in those footsteps, the same exact steps as far as funding and construction will be Pratt's Court. But not every town, but a good share of the towns have this PFAS issue.
So it's the same technology that they're using we would use as well?
Yeah, the accepted technology that the state automatically accepts is carbon filtration. It'll be two towers about 25 feet high with carbon inside, and that strips out it. Doesn't strip it out. It adsorption as opposed to absorption. Adsorption, and then once a year you'll change out the media for that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, were you able to hear enough to have a question?
I heard. Yes, I did, but I don't have a question.
Michael?
No questions.
Anyone else on the screen? Anyone here in the audience? Yes, Mr. Colto.
Madam Chair, I'd like to, through you, thank our department head, Phil, for the work he's done in terms of finding money for this. This type of expense would crush the town. It's by regulation. We have to do it. We have no choice. But the work Phil has done in the past year, I want to clarify one thing for the record. Phil, I know you said 38% grant and 0% financing. I believe that's for the balance, isn't it? 38% forgiveness, 62% financed at 0%?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah, one more.
Okay, Scott.
You talking about you change out the carbon and stuff once a year. So that's an additional cost yearly then on top of this as well?
Good question. So that'll be a line item in the budget moving forward, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to be for each facility
It'll
too?
be on, yes, it'll be on the order of, hence the two filters that I referred to. As you're changing out one, you'll have the other one to flip over to. And
Okay.
it's going to be on the order of 40 to 50,000 a year per. Yeah.
Good, okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for being on the hot seat for so long that it actually gets hot.
Thank you, Phil.
Next is Article 27, Cedar Hill Capital. Would you introduce yourself to the public, please?
Good evening, Victor Baruzza, Cedar Hill Golf Course.
And I'll read the article. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, and/or borrow or fund from retained earnings a sufficient sum of money to design, permit, install, and construct and purchase capital improvements, projects, and items for the Cedar Hill Golf Course, to determine whether the appropriation shall be raised from borrowing or otherwise. And it's, item 1 is cart and equipment storage tent for $30,000. Item 2 is course renovations for $40,000. And item 3 is greens roller for $18,000. Thank you.
Sure. Right now, we're looking for cart equipment and storage tent, basically to keep golf carts and a couple pieces of equipment out of the weather to help them last longer, in short. We've got a lot of brand new equipment that we've spent a lot of money on, and we just want to make sure that they stay safe and out of the elements. Do we go one at a time, or do you want me to roll through all three?
No, make your presentation and then we'll pick it apart.
Okay. Yay. Number 2 is course renovations. We're looking to do an expansion on the 9th green, basically double it in size. We're going to move some irrigation around. But just to get away from this every green being a circle, change the course up a little bit. These are all the things that have brought the number of traffic that we have now. And people like to see that change, and they like the buzz. So we're in more demand, allows for more pin placements and a new challenge to the course. And lastly is the greens roller. The greens roller is a machine that rolls across the greens to smoothen it out. They get very upset when the ball bounces across the green. This is you think of frost heaves and things like that. This is to help smooth that out, and it drastically decreases the amount of chemicals that you have to use from disease pressure by taking the moisture, getting it off the leaves, and getting it down into the soil system. So it's been proven that the more often you regiment this into your program, rolling your greens, the less disease pressure you have. So short and sweet, but if you have any questions, so glad to answer.
Well, the chair neglected to mention that she has been a member of the Cedar Hill Golf Course Operations Committee for 46 years, so has a noticeable bias. Will try to act professionally. Fran? Scott?
Is any of this motivated by lowering your handicap score, or is it?
It could. Yeah. It can, especially the greens roll.
All right, then I'm in.
John, were you able to get enough of that to have a question?
And everything, but I have no questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Any other person on the screen? The audience? We'll start over here. Mr. Zemanian?
Again, for the record, Mark Zemanian, 5 Low Avenue. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, Victor. I know the CPC had funded some improvements for Cedar Hill last year, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Does the renovations you're doing affect what we funded?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, in conjunction with it, because we're talking about the 9th hole on both of those.
Yeah.
One is on the fairway, one is on the green, which I believe is starting this week. But no, this is going to be completely separate from it, the other end of the...
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam
Welcome.
Chair.
You're welcome. Peter Murphy?
Peter Murphy, 60 Peters Drive.
Sir.
Question I have is actually more of a comment. The grounds there has drastically improved, and you cost money to make money. And again, they're showing a profit down there. My question to you is, as far as like the cots, you have a temporary structure you want to put up. Why not a permanent?
Well, we received quotes that were astronomical, for starters. And as it was said to me earlier, and made a very valid point, we started looking at spending a certain amount of money. We started to think about it, that it was a third of my budget, and it was pretty expensive. And the quotes that I got were about 4 times my budget. So we came up with a great answer, and we're gonna use asphalt. The DPW is going to help out with that. They're going to clear space, and then we have it's a not permanent structure. I don't want to say it's permanent by any means, but it will absolutely keep them dry and with a pretty good lifespan of 10 to 20 years, all depending upon what winter does more than anything.
Right, I've seen those before, and they last 10 years.
Right, and the difference being. The one that we're looking at is 17.9 versus 250. So if you think about it, if we have to spend 17 every 10 years, we're still never going to reach the $250,000. So it's better. It's a better option for the town.
And I want to commend you on what you've done down there.
Oh,
but also what you do with the 6-hole. I like that.
That was the big change, thanks to the CPC and the town for doing that. That was where all of our numbers started to turn, and we've been growing. We have no idea where the ceiling is. We're still growing at roughly about 15 to 20%. You're 100% right. It's sometimes it's hard to work there. There's just so many people in the way. So, not in the way, but you know what I mean.
Any other questions? Mr. Coulter?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Just like the last department head, I want to congratulate Victor as well. And for the entire team down at Cedar Hill, we asked the department heads to run like they're the chief operating officers of their own company. So when Victor first came out with the proposal, I think it was $330,000 for the building plus the pad, and it's to cover carts. We kept talking, and he finally came up with this approach, did his research on a Four Seasons tent, and then it was $70,000 because he was going to do a cement pad. He and his team kept talking with the committee and the leaders of the community of the Cedar Hill, and we came up to our own DPW can do a nice asphalt surface, and we can get someone like T.L. Edwards through Fran to donate the asphalt. So now we've got a $330,000 project down to $30,000, and Victor runs it with his team like they own it. And that's the ownership mentality we need in town. So, Victor, I just want to thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And the team. Thank you.
I do have a great team.
Anyone else? Yes, Peter.
Peter Ventresco. This $40,000 for the greens. Mr. Samadian, couldn't you guys help out with the CPC funds?
No more. There's no crosstalk.
Okay. Well, maybe I could spend money on the green, for the roller that you need. To me, that's important. More important, maybe so the balls roll good. But I don't know if I heard the town manager right. He says you're going to do away with the concrete pack slab.
We're going to do away with the concrete and move to asphalt. It's going to be cheaper. We're going to get the asphalt donated. So we're basically looking at about $30,000 to prep the site and then put the asphalt down. DPW is going to help out with a lot of that. And then about $20,000 for the
40. So it's going to be 40-something by the time you finish.
Right. Probably 20-something by the time we have the tent delivered. And
all right.
Then it's just
when did you find all this out, that it's not here instead of the concrete pack?
About
today?
A week ago.
A week ago.
So this was what we had to implement or what we had to submit as backup before the books were printed. So this was sent out beginning of January.
I know you've done a wonderful job. I always backed you up. But our budget's tight. We're in a deficit. and we're going to be in a bigger deficit next year. So,
Well, just not to cut you off, not to, and no offense to the CPC, as much as we would love to have them help out, this is planning on coming out of retained earnings from Cedar Hill, so it won't cost the town a penny. And you can save the CPC funds for the housing and the things that they're working on.
Okay, anyone who hasn't spoken on this, like to be heard. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thanks.
And I know you have an early day, so. And maybe we should take this opportunity to announce that Cedar Hill Golf Course isn't closed. If it ain't raining, you can play.
It's open. Is that
Open for business.
Thank you.
Is that it for me?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Article 28, Town Pond Management Program.
You have another one?
Oh, see, this is actually Mark's.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the...
Hello. Introduce yourself, please, to the public.
James Conlon, I'm the Environmental Affairs Officer, the town of Stoughton, in the Engineering Department.
Okay. I'll read the article. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the Treasury, if any, and/or borrow a sufficient sum of money for the continuation of the town of Stoughton's townwide lake pond management program to include engineering, consulting, studies, and ongoing treatment to control exotic and invasive aquatic vegetation. You're testing my pronunciation skills, I see.
Right.
In our town lakes and ponds, including all incidental and related expenses. The estimated cost is $64,000.
Well, yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and answer any questions you have. Our program has been in effect since 2015, where we initially used a mechanical method to remove organic material in Ames Pond. The next year, we applied herbicide to control the massive amount of exotic invasive vegetation, mainly Kabamba, Carolina, in Ames Pond. With a good result the first year after treating the entire pond, we added Harris Pond the next year, and every year after that we subsequently added a pond until we were up to treating 4 ponds in the town. Between years of resetting the ponds, where we would use whole lake treatment of sonar, we would use a combination of different contact herbicides. Sonars are systemic herbicide, and at very low concentrations, very effective in controlling certain aggressive exotic weeds that had overcome and overgrown in the pond, and increasing the amount of organic sediment and muck. Reducing those ponds to swamps eventually if these were unmanaged. This program is a result of a study by IEP that was done in the 80s, and it was actually initiated by Elliot Stone, the chairman of the Board of Health, in the 80s, before I started working for the town, where a town-wide lake study was prepared and recommendations were made for lake management of the at least five ponds in the town: Ames Pond, Harris Pond, Denison's Pond, Albert's Pond, and Woods Pond. We would like to add Woods Pond to our schedule this year. We hope to have it inspected early in the season, then mapped, and then that will be treated also in addition to the other ponds that we have. This has been a successful program. It has improved the values and functions of our water bodies in the town: aesthetic quality, fishing, recreation, retention of pollution, and so forth. If anything, not retention of pollution, but removal of sediment, removal of pollution, and retention of water for flood storage, and improvement of wildlife habitat and recreation for activities such as fishing, canoeing, and kayaking on our ponds. I would appreciate your support in sponsoring this article or endorsing this article so we can continue our pond management program.
Thank you. Fran?
No questions.
Scott?
No questions.
John?
John's trying to get in.
He's trying to get back in.
Can you click him in?
I can do that.
What about Michael? Any questions?
No questions.
John, thank you. Any questions, John? John's been having some issues hearing us. Questions from the audience? Mr. DeFelice?
Yeah, I have a question.
Introduce yourself and address, please.
Ed D. Police Precinct 6. A question I had, you mentioned Woods' Pond.
Yes.
Is there any public access to that pond?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. We have conservation land surrounding Woods Pond, and we have access by easement from Woods Pond Estates, and that it'll be a good opportunity for us to improve our trail system once this pond is treated in part of our pond management program. It would work out very well for educational potential. It's right next to the elementary school, the Gibbons School, and a playground where there's parking. So it would work out very well, I think, Ed. Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that pond from the old days. So is the access by trails? In other words, if people wanted to go, say older people that may not be able to walk on trails, is there any other more direct access to the ponds?
There is access from Woods Pond Estate by means of an easement, an access easement that leads to the easement surrounding the detention basin, which has a 10-foot access road around the detention basin. That leads to a trail that comes straight to the spillway, which is a straight run which extends to the Gibbons School pretty much through a white pine forested area. That area is going to need some trail development beyond the knoll where the white pines are, because sometimes that area floods in the springtime. But yeah, there is good public access from that site, from Woods Pond, and there's potential public access from the parking lot at the Gibbons School also. But that's going to be another project for us to improve that accessibility.
I understand what you're saying, but again, it doesn't sound like that types of access you're talking about are going to be able to be used by elderly people and more people that may be a little disabled that can't walk long distances.
It depends. In the summertime, during dry periods, the trail is more passable and accessible. I would say there'd be more potential for access for folks that might be in need from Woods Pond, where that trail is generally flat and level.
Could you possibly, in your deliberations, try to make them more friendly toward the types of people I'm talking about, so that, do you know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think that's something we can definitely look into once we start to develop that property, which is in need of a lot of attention. And it has a way to go before it's going to have a trail system as good as some of our other conservation land, the 700-acre Bird Street Conservation Land and Glen Echo.
Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Thank you. Jerry McDonald, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. This article relates to the pond management. It's not a trail development article. There's trails out there. There's trails at all the different lands that we own. This is strictly for treating the lakes to keep them viable, and as Jim mentioned, for recreation, et cetera. So I just wanted to make sure we stayed on target here.
I think we understand that. We were just giving Mr. DeFelice a little leeway.
No, I understand that, and I think there are areas in town that are much more accessible than Woods Pond, as to people that might.
First, we'll fix the pond, and then we'll fix the way to get there.
Well, we're working on that in other contexts at this time.
Mr. McCarron?
Dwight McCarron, Precinct 4. You can, if you go to the end of Kotlik Street Park,
yes,
at the end of Kotlik, and walk into that dam about 25 yards. If you more, I mean, that's the closest I think you can get.
That's correct.
We've kind of settled the fact that we're not talking trails.
So my question for Mr. Conlon is on Ames Pond, which I really appreciate because I live on Ames Pond, the weed-free. How do you determine how far up the pond you're going to treat on the north side?
That's a very good question. The next contractor that's awarded the contract will need to perform an inspection at the beginning of the season, and they'll determine what the extent of treatment would be. And I've always had an issue with regard to the range of treatment in the beginning of the season. But by the time I got there later in the season, I'd seen that I was satisfied with the view I at least had. But if I had binoculars, I would see some vegetation further north that I think would be treated and should be treated.
Right. If you go from where the horse farm is up to the wells in the summer, if that's not treated, that is virtually impassable. Just very thick pond weed. I mean, it takes so much effort to paddle through it. So it's that next section up above the horse farm that's bad in the summertime, even if it's not treated.
I agree, and I agree it's been impassable by kayakers. In addition to that, I had spoken to the contractor we've had in the past about that, and that was a concern I share with you. The contract will be rebid this year, and that will be something that we will hopefully improve in this program.
Thank you.
Could I?
Yes,
I
I'm
respond to that?
recognizing you because you're the chair of the
Thank you.
Conservation Commission.
I think what Jim is alluding to is that the treatment is by powerboat, generally speaking, a small powerboat, so it's limited as to where it can get to. It's not probably going to go through to some of the areas that you might be able to get into with a kayak, which I have done actually. But it's limited to where they can get to.
Yeah, it is a question if they can make
a
it
flatboat
through that passageway, right by the farm there, up to get to the northern part.
Right.
Of the
So
pond.
it's a limited
in
by
high water. You can, but
We're not going to have any cross.
So I just want to clarify, it's by powerboat.
Thank you for your clarification. Mr. Ventresco.
Peter Ventresco, 587 Kenton Street. Jim, you remember years back when they started giving haircuts to Ames's Pond before we started using chemicals?
Yes, we used a harvester, but the harvester was only used as a platform for the organic matter that was collected by the hydro rake, they called it. But we did not perform a haircut there. A harvester would perform a haircut. It is a revolving blade beneath a boat that would cut weeds, and it would cause them to grow back, and that would need to be done on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, I brought that up for a reason, because that year when they were looking appropriate money at town meeting to do that, I did a lot of research on chemicals to kill the weeds, and when I mentioned that at town meeting, they were ready to feather me and run me out of town. Because chemicals. Okay, but all the research I've done, you got chemicals that kills the weeds, and you can also give the water black sheen or blue sheen. And there's a place up in Big Lake up in Lynn, Mass, that the residents paid to have that done. And the last town that I talked to at that same period was Mendon. They had a 10-acre pond that was costing them $800 a year to take care of the vegetation. But the chemicals they put in, it kills everything. We never kill everything. Every time, like I'm just looking at all these ponds being done. I go by Harris's Pond in Old Alice.
Yes.
And I say, they're not treating these ponds. And every time I ask them, Mr. McDonald told me you told us, yeah, they are. But whoever's doing this, they're not doing it properly because they're not killing it. And there's other chemicals in there. It goes down and it eats all the sediment on the bottom too. So I think we have to do a little more researching with different companies in here.
Correct.
And, and you should see the pictures they give you before and after. The after looks nothing like ours.
I agree with you, Mr. Ventresca. I had an issue with the south basin of Albert's Pond last year. I brought it to the attention of the contract. It didn't even look like it was treated.
Yeah.
And I was going to require them, if the contract was extended, to repeat the process. and this wasn't the first time this happened with this particular contractor. But the south basin of Albert's Pond is subjected to an area where there's a lot of non-point source pollution, a relatively flat area as well from a lot of the surrounding land use. If you noticed, the north basin of Albert's Pond was much better, and that waterway flows north. It's in the Neponset watershed. And I agree with you, and I wasn't satisfied with the level of service we have, but that contract was not extended from that contractor, and we will be looking for new contractors.
And look at
I pointed that
Harris's.
out, actually,
Harris's
to
is
some folks I
disgrace.
spoke with.
You get there where the culvert crosses the road to the left of that, and all the way along the street, it's always cat and nine tails, all kinds of.
Okay, I think we're drifting from the article to
That is the article.
observations. Thank you. Anyone else?
Vegetation there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Conlon. Okay, now I have a question for the town manager, who's not here. Okay, is there someone here who's going to present? Thank you.
Oh,
You're done. You're
thank you, members.
free to
Thank
go.
you very much. Good night now.
He likes us so much.
Anyone here to present Article 29?
Yes, Madam Chair, 29, 30, 31.
Come on down. Introduce yourself and fill us in. Well, introduce yourself and then I'll read the article.
Good evening, everyone. Nick Dufresne, project engineer for the engineering department.
Okay. So we're starting with 29, and oh, here it is. Thank you. I think this presentation, I don't know if I've seen this presentation. Well, I'll just read the article and you can. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, and/or borrow a sufficient sum of money for professional consulting services to provide survey, civil engineering, landscape design, and other related consulting services with respect to traffic improvements at the West Street, Plain Street intersection and surrounding areas, $55,000. Now, were you going to go through this? Is that your plan?
I just wanted to pass it out as a visual for people to follow along. I can kind of briefly just give an oversight of the request for this article.
Well, let me just check my trusty dusty here. Okay. It's only 9:06. It just seems longer. Keep going.
Okay, thank you. So this article is to request design funds to address a problem intersection that's been identified at Plain Street and West Street. It's an existing configuration. It's very unconventional and confusing for drivers. There's a large painted hatched island that you typically don't see with T'd intersections that come into a 90-degree angle. The crosswalks are very long, especially across that West Street, southern West Street intersection. It's about 120 feet long, so for pedestrians to cross would take a good amount of time and expose them to the traffic. The new design will reconfigure the geometry to provide a more conventional T-type intersection. This will be safer for vehicles and pedestrians, shorter crosswalks, and enhanced lane striping and signage likely in this area. Consultant's estimate for this. Yes, sir. Consultant's estimate for this design was $48,970. The article is requesting $55,000, just with a little bit of a contingency there, in case it does go over a little bit. Take any questions.
So we're on the page called Proposed Conditions Conceptual Design. That's what we're talking about. There's a lot of information here, but okay, anyone Scott, question?
Yes, so I live on the street. This is actually not very far from my house. And I will say that this is a definite problem. This intersection itself has an accident probably once every 2 weeks. And sometimes they're, I don't know how devastating, but they're bad. Because this stretch of the road, people really fly down this. I noticed that there's, so where you've drawn in the crosswalk on this, there's some solid white lines on Plain Street at that spot. Do you know, is that proposed as a stop line?
Currently, there are white lines, or you're saying?
No, I see in the drawing here, it looks like there's bolded white lines.
Right, so.
On, oh, sorry, that's on West.
On
Oh,
West Street.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No problem.
Okay.
So this is a concept plan of what the design could look like.
Yeah.
It's definitely not what the end product will be.
Okay.
That's kind of the whole purpose of the design, is to get ideas from our consultant to tell us what should be done here. But yes, those dashed lines are a proposed crosswalk across West Street. That's what that would indicate.
Okay. And so there'd be no way to get across Plain?
So again, this is not anything
Yeah.
final. The final design may incorporate other crosswalks in there,
Mhm.
and that's really what the purpose of this design project is for.
Got it. Thank you. John has his hand up.
I'll get to him. I'm writing as fast as I can. John,
You're muted.
John, you're still muted? John, you're muted? Did you have a question?
I don't know if he had a question or not. I can't tell.
Okay.
You're muted, John.
John, did you have a question? We can't hear you. You're muted.
I think that's a no.
Okay.
You should see it. We can't. No, I'm sure.
No. No, he's good. Okay, he's good.
Okay. Michael?
Questions?
Okay, it's, do we have an idea of how long this change will take?
Hear me now?
Yes. We do, John.
Okay, back.
You good? No question?
Well, the gentleman with the glasses, I could not hear anything he was saying.
Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, but I
right.
couldn't hear you before.
It's too bad. It was incredibly profound.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Frustrating tonight.
Yeah. So basically, I was just saying I, would like to see how this turns out, right? Because I live on the street, so I see these accidents all the time that happen here. And I just had to ask questions about the crosswalk, and I misread the street, so I asked about bolded white lines that were very obvious. And really, that's about it. Just that, hoping that this isn't like the final, but that there are some improvements for it.
So, a question, John?
I do have one question. This intersection, the size of this intersection concerns me. I don't know how you're gonna make improvements to this intersection. It's because it's so small and tight. Because there's 5 streets coming into, there's 3 streets coming into 27. Dan Street's.
You're on the wrong one.
Plain and West Street.
Oh, Plain, I thought we're doing Canton School Street.
Not yet.
No, we're doing 29, John.
Yeah, see, I can't hear a thing, so I don't know what's going on.
Okay, we'll try to have everybody speak louder into the microphone.
I thought we were on a different article, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
We'll get to you on Article 30, next one.
We're on Article 30.
Okay, my question was, how long is this construction going to take?
So first, obviously,
Can you hold this a little closer so you can?
Sure. The design obviously will need to be done first, so there'll be some survey involved initially to prepare that design plan. That shouldn't take too long, typically a few months. We can get a design back from our consultant. But then obviously for the construction, that money would need to most likely come from an article from town meeting once it's designed.
I broke my own rule. I asked something that wasn't in the article. Yes, Fran, did you have a question on Plain and West Street?
No questions.
Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Jerry McDonald, Precinct 4. I know this street very well. It's in my neck of the woods. I ride my bike down there a lot, and shortening up that corner to make a true, kind of a straight-in intersection will be a major improvement, I think, for everybody, cars, pedestrians, bike riders, etc. Just so everybody knows, West Street has stop signs going both direction, and Plain Street obviously doesn't. I would be in favor of keeping it that way. There was some discussion of potentially going to a four-way stop, which would serve to slow down traffic, but I don't think it's warranted based on the volume of traffic. And I imagine there might be a little bit of a traffic study involved in this as part of that. But I'm just voicing my opinion that the existing stop signs should be adequate. Maybe they add the overhead flashing yellow lights for Plain and a flashing red light for West Street, so people coming down would know that there's an intersection coming up at night or in snow, etc. But I'm in favor of this project, and I just want to share my comments.
Thank you. Mr. DeFelice?
Yeah, I agree. This has been a tough intersection. I think there's been some fatalities there over the years. My question is maybe I could just lean over to you. On the green here, this is coming down, say, from the pond, right? So is what's happening here, all this green, are we taking pavement out of there now, and this is going to be grass?
Correct.
Okay. So what happens? Do these taper off? We've just got them.
So they're basically just shown as, blending. This is grass here now.
Oh, okay.
Just visually to show that, there'd be some grass shoulders that connect to the existing grass shoulders that are there currently.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. They've done a lot of this over the years in Sharon. So it's always looks a lot better.
Anyone else?
Madam Chairman?
Oh, Mr. McCarron.
Dwight McCarron, Precinct 4. I go through this intersection a lot. The problem is when you're coming down Plain Street to turn onto West, down toward the pond, you see how it's angled. It's actually that when you're turning left, the cars are right out there in front of you. You have to go around them and then cut back. That's why there's always been the tendency for me and other people to cut through that green area. But if you look as you're coming down, you have the turn that you take is sharp. It's an acute angle to come back, and that it's already difficult now, and that simply narrows the street, and it means it's just a difficult turn to go left on. Now, granted, it may mean you're going to come to almost to a full stop to make that left-hand turn because it's so sharp, especially if there's a car there waiting for you. So I'm not sure how to remedy that. I just know at the moment I appreciate having that little cut through there so when there's no traffic you can go through. Otherwise, that turn is just difficult. And it's probably the sharpest turn back on any street I have to go on.
Understood. And like you just said, that's due to the existing alignment of West and Plain, the way they meet each other. Those things will definitely be taken into consideration, and the best effort taken to address those issues for sure.
Thank you.
Yes, Scott.
So, Nick, you said that there was a OCPC study that was done?
Yes.
So do we have data from that?
So they have made recommendations, as far as the signage, flashing signs, as you mentioned earlier when we were speaking, there's been some improvements to the chevron signs around the corner, up the road a little ways. But all of those recommendations that OCPC has provided us will be passed along to the consultant to incorporate into their design.
So I know that those strips are put across the street, and I know that those were out there for, I don't know, a week or maybe two or something.
Car counters.
Right. So do those track speed as well?
I believe they do.
Yeah.
Not only the number of cars, but also the speed of them.
So does that information become public as well, or is that?
All that information collected will be passed along to the consultant, and for them to use in their design.
Yeah. So this is where I would push, because I live right where the road turns into a straightaway, and that is a raceway. Right when they hit the top of that, where I am, it turns into a speedway. And there's some seriously scary accidents that I have been first on the scene for, and watched the telephone poles get replaced over and over on that street. It's a mess. So whatever can be done, I would support slowing that traffic down.
I was just going to say, for those reasons, it's a reason
Anyone else?
Yeah.
to have this up.
You got to be going pretty fast to snap a telephone pole.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll move on to Article 30, Canton and School Street Intersection Improvements Design. And that's you too?
Yes, Madam Chair. And I have.
Well, while you're passing that out, I'll read. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, or borrow a sum sufficient for the cost of a consultant to undertake transportation-related engineering analysis, design and surveying services for the Canton Street and School Street intersection and surrounding areas, including all incidental and related costs, $225,000. And again, this is the design.
I just gotta say, color. I didn't have a budget for color. Just wanted
Actually, I watched
to say that.
I watched the Finance Committee meeting. I saw that discussion.
Yeah, I'll make it again. I just want to say, nice color. Tell Mark, nice color.
I will do that.
I didn't have a budget to have color.
Okay, what picture are we looking at?
Okay, so this article is actually a project that's been ongoing for some time now, long before I arrived here a year ago. But basically, this Canton and School Street intersection is, again, another hot intersection with some serious traffic issues. And the design has been underway for that. There was some ARPA money that was provided for the design. Mass DOT is involved here. And as you know, there's a railroad crossing as well. Because of that, Mass DOT has required us to now expand the scope of the project to include the railroad tracks and Cushing Street for a signal at Cushing Street to work in conjunction with the signals that are being proposed for Canton and School Street. So this particular article is asking for, basically, it's a change work order, an amendment to the design. That amendment is $187,380. And we are requesting $225,000, again, with a little contingency. Things happen during the design. We don't want to be left without enough funds to complete the design of this project. Once the project is completed and designed, the cost estimate for construction is just over $4.25 million and is slated to begin in 2028, and that is a cost that the state is paying for. So Mass DOT will provide the construction cost once we give them the full design.
Ooh, good deal. John, we're on that intersection now.
Hey, thank you. Mike, I don't have any diagram in front of me. All I can say is that this intersection is very small and tight. So I don't know I can't see what improvements you have in store for this intersection. There's multiple streets that go into one Canton Street. So my concern is the size. They're going to make it bigger somehow. That's fine. They're going to put lights in. That's fine too. But I don't know. It's going to be very tough making this intersection better than it actually is because of the size of it already. I mean, no matter how you turn, whether you turn a right or left, no matter what street, It's a very tight squeeze. So that's my question.
Correct, John. So again, the alignment of the roadways here, they're not perpendicular. They kind of come in at a funny angle. To your point, the Sumner Street, that's actually being proposed as a one-way out now to help rectify that situation. But the signalization and things that are being done to the intersection should help to, fix a lot of these issues.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mike?
No questions.
Fran?
No questions.
Scott?
The data that comes from this, so the 2013 to 2017 study that you have in the 14.6 collisions per year, how often does that happen? Like, how often do we get like a 5-year study on like an intersection? And is this the kind of information that you need to get like Mass DOT support for?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, that study was from 2013 to 2017. This has been a project that has been going on for numerous years. So that's why that data is probably that old. Mass DOT is involved. We're working in conjunction with them, following their steps and guidelines to get this intersection designed so that when it is completed, they come in and build out for it, no cost to the town.
So who does the study? They do the study?
Right, so as part of this design, there's traffic studies, there's all those things that go into the design of the intersection.
I guess to reframe the question, like, is this the kind of information that's required to
Absolutely.
get funding from them?
Not to get funding from them, but as part of their guidelines, these are the steps we need to go through, the information we need to provide.
So in the case where, like, of other intersections, is this happening all the time? Does the town gather data like this, or?
So the consultants that we use for these particular designs gather that data to use for their design.
Okay.
That's what these articles that fund the design incorporate.
All right.
This all started years ago when a woman was killed there.
Yeah.
It's government work. It takes a long time.
Ever, yeah.
And if we want the other government to pay for it, it takes even longer.
Yeah. Wow. That'll be 15 years.
I think that was the committee. Yes, Mr. McDonald?
John has his hand raised again.
Okay. Just shed a little light, if I could. As Cynthia mentioned, this particular intersection has had a long history of being a troubling intersection. I believe the state has it on its like top 20 list in the state type of thing. So that's why the money is going to flow. The design, it's been on that list for a long time. It's my understanding that this project got shelved when South Coast Rail was proposed to go through, which was going to change the whole dynamics of all the traffic in the whole downtown, and obviously it's right here. So that whole South Coast Rail process just put this project on hold for probably 10 or 15 years. And now I think that's evidently resolved to some degree. So now it's kind of bubbling back up to the surface. So that's my read on it.
Anyone else? Peter Ventresco?
I travel this intersection all my life, and it's going to be a quagmire as far as getting the signal lights to keep this traffic moving, because a lot of days at nighttime the traffic's already backed up, like on Washington Street all the way to Canton Street on School Street. And if the train's at the railroad station, the traffic backs all the way down past the Catholic Church. And then in the morning, you're going to get a lot of traffic coming out of up School Street heading towards Washington Street. And then you got Summer Street coming into that same little intersection. How do you intend to control them two streets coming into Canton Street without, I don't know, you got to keep Canton Street going. And then at nighttime, you have to keep School Street going from Washington Street onto Canton. So the lights will have to be different in the morning because all the traffic is going from Canton Street to Washington Street. And there'll be a little more traffic coming out of School Street, but less out of Summer Street. So, you got any idea how you're going to make them signals all work? The whole one, like Summer Street back or
Right.
School Street?
So the timing and the traffic data that they do collect all goes into that design. That's really the purpose of this whole project, is to, time those things out correctly so that they work in conjunction with each other.
Well, in theory, it sounds good, but we get downtown, and the biggest part of the problem with the traffic there is the traffic signals are not coordinated.
Okay, we're not going to solve that
No, but I'm
problem
just
tonight.
trying to make a comparison, because if these lights aren't coordinated right, we're going to have a bigger mess than we got now. That's all I'm trying to say.
I think he's heard you.
Well, he didn't hear me till I told him.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. DeFelice.
There's John, too, he wants to
Oh,
talk.
okay.
Yeah. Peter brought up Sumner Street. As I look at your diagram, it shows two-way traffic here. It doesn't show how, it shows, going out, but it doesn't show how Sumner is going to get into that street.
Right, so this is actually existing two-way traffic.
Right.
Yeah, that's not been
Proposed-
designed.
Proposed conditions, it'll be changed to only one-way traffic, out.
Okay.
So these will no longer be there.
Okay. So that, again, is my question. How are people that have to access it, how are they going to get to their homes or whatever?
Well, there'll have to be another way around to get onto Sumner Street. This will not be allowed to come down this way.
Yeah, because I think the next cross street is way down here somewhere. But I'm just saying, the people that have to get here, and you're not going to give them access, that's
Although
going to be
they'll have
tricky.
to reroute around to be able to come down the one-way now.
Oh, I know that, but I'm just saying, it's going to make it difficult, so they'll have to come down School Street and look for something down here and try and get back up this way.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing is, where you have the end of that access, there's a lot of distance between that stop line and getting into that intersection.
Yes.
So does that get somehow controlled? Is that-
Yeah, all the signals are controlled and timed to allow traffic to pass through.
And also was considered Sumner Street. Yeah. The other question I have, on Cushing Street, there's a house on the corner that's, there's virtually no walking space there. Right now, it's just like it's a wall and it goes
Correct.
basically right to the curb.
Correct, right here.
Yeah. What's going to happen there?
That's the purpose of this, the extra money we're looking for to analyze the Cushing Street intersection
okay.
to see what can be done there.
Yeah.
So this portion of the work has been designed for here. We're now extending it to this area.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, thank
you.
you. Anyone else? John, I guess you have something you'd like to add?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot, my big concern is the railroad tracks. They're very close to that intersection. We all know between 4 and 7 o'clock, traffic is horrendous in that area. And with the traffic, like say there's a red light onto School Street, traffic is just gonna get backed up right up to those railroad tracks. And what are we gonna do about that?
Yep, so that's actually the reasoning for this article, is to address that issue, to analyze the railroad tracks along with Cushing in conjunction with the improvements that I proposed at Canton and school, so that they all work fluently with each other.
What about Cushing Street?
That's what we're trying to get the money to find out tonight, is to get that design.
All right, thank you. I promise I have no more questions.
Anyone else? Okay, just for the audience's benefit, I was kind of semi-promised people they could get out of here at 10:30, so we've got about an hour. So try to stick really to the point. Article 31.
Okay. One more quick handout.
While I read as quickly as I can. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, and/or borrow a sufficient sum of money for professional consulting services to provide surveys, civil engineering, and other related consulting services with respect to drainage, parking, traffic, and landscape improvements at the Cedar Hill Golf Course, or take any action relative thereto. $67,000.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, as discussed earlier, the Cedar Hill Golf Course has been experiencing a influx in usership, and this proposed article here is for parking lot improvements and expansion for the golf course. Currently, it's a mismatch of some beat-up pavement with some gravel. There's no sort of stormwater quality. Currently, it all runs off into the pond located on the golf course. So-
Excuse me, did you give
Yes.
me one?
I may not have. Here you are.
This is across the street from my farm, so I'm a
Yes.
little interested about where the stormwater goes.
Okay.
Get free water.
To your farm.
No, we're farming, we're not doing aquaculture.
So the plan that you do have in front of you is a little bit more than a concept plan. It's a 25% design of that parking area, along with some stormwater improvements there. Tonight, we're asking for monies to finish that design off, the rest of the 75%. We have a proposal here for $67,000 to complete that design. This will formalize the parking area to provide designated parking spaces, as well as some handicap spaces and access to the golf course. You'll also see that the water coming off the parking area will be gone into some bioretention areas, and this will provide some good water quality before the stormwater enters the pond, which we currently do not have.
We had it, but those hay bales have kind of disintegrated in the last 30 years.
This will be a lot more permanent resolution.
Question-
And yeah, that's what I was going to say. Take some
Questions, John?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions.
Fran?
No questions.
Scott?
No questions.
My question, and Mr. Tisdale seemed to tell me that when we originally added to the parking lot, there were rules, and you could not have an impermeable surface that close to the pond. Now those rules have changed, and we can pave that close to the pond?
So, because we're adding these bioretention areas where there's nothing there now, it's an improvement to that situation. So, to answer your question, yes, the water will come off the parking area into these bioretention areas. The sediment will filter out before it gets discharged into the pond, providing that water quality.
And I like the split in and out. Right now, it's just an open,
No man's land.
yeah. And people have complained, as far as I know, we haven't had any accidents, but people are trying to turn in while people are trying to turn out. And it says Park Street, but it's Route 27, it's State Highway, and it gets a little hairy. Any questions from the audience? Yes, Mrs. Manion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark Zamanian, 5 Low Avenue. Just a brief question about the retention ponds through you to Nick. Are they going to require maintenance? And if so, is that something that the town has thought about as far as budgets go?
So no more maintenance than some of the other bioretention areas that we have in town already. The Gibbon School is a good example. It's a yearly sort of cleaning, mowing of that area. There's plantings that are put in here that, tend to just strive on their own. So it's actually very minimal maintenance.
Okay. So you don't anticipate any major increase in budget as a result?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. DeFelice.
Yeah, I've had, one of the concerns I've had for a long time there is that the handicap spots are basically, the existing one, I think there's maybe two, and they're basically at the bottom of the hill. And probably way back when, it wasn't as big a problem. But my feeling is that we need to put, and it might take a little work, but I think we have to have some handicaps at the top of the hill, opposite the entrance to the restaurant. And I know it's going to maybe disrupt some other things, I don't know, but I don't even know how we've got this long without addressing that, because that grade coming up, as we all know, is very, very steep.
Right.
And that would be a challenge if you were in a wheelchair, I'm sure. And it's a challenge for someone that can't really walk with balance problems, et cetera.
Yeah, I had to have help.
Yes, exactly. So I'm wondering if you could do something, when you're up there, let's say that this is the restaurant. So you come up the hill and maybe across, because the door is, say this is the whole thing is the restaurant. And so where the door is, there should be spaces across from it. And I realize there's a wooden fence there and so forth and so on. But I think it's that important that, I don't know what the state requires. You'd have to know what the, from Victor as to how many people are up there and so forth. But I think that's something that this is a good time to address that. And, I've always said somebody could make an issue that we don't have it already. But
If you see on the plan here, we actually do propose 3 handicapped parking spaces here, and there's a walkway that comes up to the facility. This will obviously be designed within ADA compliant regulations. So there's 3 spaces being proposed right here. Those are the handicap spaces with a walkway at a grade acceptable.
is that the walkway?
Correct. On the side of the
That's what's
side
there.
of the driveway, it'll come up and provide access.
That's there now, right? Goes toward the back of the building?
It might be there to some capacity now.
Some sense,
It's
yeah.
going to be a lot better and designed correctly per ADA
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're finally doing that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone on the screen? Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Good night.
I think we're up to Article 38, renovation of town-owned barn on West Street. To see if the town will raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the Treasury, borrow or fund pursuant to general law, chapter, section, what's C? Little c period.
Chapter.
It is chapter, okay. 44B, the Community Preservation Act, a sum of money to fund the renovation of the barn on the property at Assessors Map 37, Parcel 34, and it's down as $230,000. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Mark Zamanian. I'm the Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I have with me Barry Castler, my Program Administrator, and Dwight McCarron, our Vice Chair. We'll try and keep this short and sweet for you. Article 38 is a barn renovation. This is a follow-up article from a previous town meetings article. On December 6, 2023, the CPC voted 8-0 to recommend to town meeting $230,000 to be paid in cash for the stabilization and renovation of the barn on West Street. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dwight McCarron, who's going to give you a brief presentation. Dwight?
The oldest part of the barn was built by Jesse Gay and Dwight McCarron, Historical Commission. Jesse Gay in 1808, we believe. The Hurleys added on to that barn in the 1930s. At that point, it was one of the biggest dairy operations in town. McNamara's bought it, I believe, in the 50s and then sold it to the town later, but Ed has leased that barn for another 20 years until he himself is retired too. So there's still a lot of detritus, some valuable stuff in the barn, but there's a series of things that need to be done that were recommended by the consultants who we hired, I mean, not the least of which is clearing around the barn, roof's a priority, and foundations a priority. Decision to shore up the oldest part, which contains some hand-hewn beams. We're probably not going to opt for the most expensive route, which would be to replace all the old timber with other old timbers, but we'll replace them with modern timbers to the extent that it'll support the structure and keep it safe. As far as the plans out back, I know there have been attempts made to, certainly there's value in the hay that's out there. And right now, I think the hay's cut on a sort of an impromptu basis by McNamara's and or others, and usually whatever they're doing it is whatever they get is the cost that's given to them. The town doesn't pay anything, but the town doesn't get anything. Although in some places McNamara's have charged for it, but there's a possibility for both agricultural, community gardens, certainly hay out there, and the barn itself is amenable to becoming sort of a rough barn museum or farm museum for Stoughton, which has 250 years of small farming behind it. Not much left, but it was certainly there, and that was the center of farming in this town.
Okay, thank you, Dwight. Barry, you have anything to add? Would you like? No?
We're okay
Mark,
for now.
you're good?
Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. I stepped in for Cynthia Walsh, the acting chair, acting right now until she comes back. Open it up to the committee. Anybody from the committee? Fran?
Who maintains the barn if this moved forward? Who would maintain the barn?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The barn is under the care and custody of the Select Board. We're in the process of meeting with the Select Board or gaining a meeting with them in a public setting so that we can get a sense from them what they want to see. This got put on a consent agenda recently. Really wasn't the right place for it, so we're seeking to put together a presentation and have that meeting with the Select Board. Once they determine the use for the barn, then we would have a better understanding. But my belief is where the town is in control of the barn, it would be the town that would have to maintain it. And I do know if the barn had to be taken down, it would be the town's responsibility.
Anything else, Fran? Nope. Scott?
Yeah, so where did the number come from, the cost? Was there an actual quote?
There was part of our Article 2 town meeting, which was approved, I believe it was last year, if my memory serves me correctly. They all blur. Provided a cost analysis or an estimate for us. We used that estimate and added a generous contingency to it of about 12% off the top of my head to ensure that there was enough funds given inflation and the current situation we have with construction. So we have hard numbers, and I believe those numbers are in our informational and packet for town meeting.
Anything else, Scott?
I guess just the use for the property. Like, I know you said the possible museum, like that's pretty cool, but is there any other like community events or anything that could be held there?
That's a great question. It's part of why we need to meet with the Select Board in conjunction with the Conservation Commission. The CPC, through myself, has had a number of discussions with Conservation. They control the land in the back, so we will need to coordinate whatever usage happens on the land out back, if it's a public usage, with the Select Board who control the barn. Education is a strong factor in this. There are a number of other communities that hold an educational system that is geared toward agriculture. We have Norfolk Aggie here in our, within the realm of our community. So we could see collaborating on something like that. The museum and educational purposes, the barn would be essential for those, not only for, the educational use of farm, but also, I think it's a good idea to provide the residents of Stoughton with some history and museum-like events that the historical committee and commission and society often hold on other events. So I think it would be a great use of the barn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool.
Okay, so have we gone through?
We just started the committee here, and then we got to go to the committee online.
John?
I don't know if he can hear you.
Mike?
No questions.
Okay. Public, Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jerry McDonald, Precinct 4 Town Meeting Rep, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. The parcel of land that the barn sits on is about 2.5 acres, fronting West Street. Historical farming community. Behind the barn is, and directly abutting that parcel is roughly 800 acres of conservation land, which consists of fields in that immediate area and then woods beyond, as you all know. The Conservation Commission has, Dwight and Mark have come before the Conservation Commission in the past, seeking the endorsement of the committee's willingness to consider proposals to use an agricultural use of the open fields that are behind the barn parcel. They've gotten that on at least 2 occasions, I believe. So the Conservation Commission is supportive of agricultural use, be that an educational use, victory gardens, or potentially leasing the property or licensing the property to a farmer, some local farm that might need more land. So we're really open to using it for agriculture to help maintain it as fields, because we have a lot of woods, but we want to maintain those fields, which, as mentioned, we do pay to get cut, as they're questionable for hay, but I think they get hayed sometimes. So I just want to chime in and say the Conservation Commission is very supportive of this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Ventresco.
Peter Ventresco. Yeah, I agree. The hay fields have to be mowed every year, because if you don't, it goes back to nature and you lose the fields the way they are. But as far as needing the barn has nothing to do if somebody farms the land or they mow it for hay. And how many barns do we need in Stoughton? We can't even maintain the barn we have up in Cape and Reynolds. Now, the original barn, the addition is bigger than the original barn. So the original barn was probably 18-something, and the addition is probably 1920. So I don't see any big historical factor in this barn that's designed on today's technology, not on the original barn with mortise and joint tenants to hold all post and beam barn together. I think it's way too much money to spend on this barn, and I'm against it. Even if you got a truck farmer to go in there and plant 50 acres there, he does not need the barn, because they're not going to store the equipment there. The equipment's going to go back to the original farm. Like the Bittarelli brothers, all over the Bridgewaters and the Middleboroughs, they planted acres and acres all over the place. They didn't have equipment and barns in every parcel of land in every town. No, the tractors, the plows, the potato diggers all went back to a central location. So I absolutely see no reason to spend this kind of money
Thank you.
on this barn.
Anyone else?
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me finish.
Anyone? Yes, Mr. DeFelice.
Yeah, I think, it sounds like what Peter's saying, I think this bond thing is questionable. We talked about making a museum. What do we have that would be put into this to make it a museum? We don't have
We have
anything.
old farm machines, we have milk bottles, we have milk cans, we have tools, primitive in nature. So we have a number of things, some of which are at the society, some of which are in fields right outside the area. Right now, we don't know what to do with like old, you may have seen some in fields that you know of, old rusty farm machinery, which is sitting there. We're waiting a place to put it. Well, this would be a place where if we decided to have a demonstration of what farming through the ages was, and this barn would be a place for it. And I suppose the problem is if we don't do something, it's going to fall in, and I just want to save it.
Okay, the in the front, between the barn and the wall at the street, what's going to happen? Is that going to be cleaned up, or what's going to happen? Because right now,
yes,
Okay, good. Right now, it's, you know, you kind of go by the barn, you drive by it, and most people don't even realize it's there. It's not prominent. You can't see it. The other question is, again, public access. How are people going to get up in there behind the barn to park? Is there going to be parking?
There's an asphalt parking behind the barn, actually 20 spaces at least, and then an asphalt road that goes out to the back field. So there's more parking there than there is, let's say, at the corner of West Street where people park for the trail. So there's actually very good parking right near the barn.
Yeah, that road you're talking about that goes up on the left side of the barn, that obviously would have to be redone. That's a pretty shaky, I know it's paved, but I mean...
It's not bad shape, really. It's leaf covered, but it's not bad shape.
And the other thing, too, is if you were... I can't see if you're going to do this project that you would even entertain leasing it to somebody, because once you do that, that again limits the public access. So if you've got a guy that's got a lease to farm that area, you're not going to have people walking through there. You can't. I mean, so again, I don't know, you know, if this was maybe closer to another historic building or something, I think it would be great. But where it stands out there by itself, I don't think they're going to get anybody, or not too many people that are going to be able to go up, that'll go there to look at it.
Well, it stands right next to the Gibbons house, which used to be the Hurley house, which is before that was the Gay house, which is one of Stoughton's oldest houses, and so the two used to go together, but that historic Federalist house is right next door.
Is that the house to the standing?
That Maureen Gibbons lives in, and Jim and Maureen.
Oh, the Gibbons live? Okay. I don't know. I think, like Peter, is, to me, it's not an outstanding thing to look at. I mean, it's a bond. He mentioned his additions have been in 2 centuries, it seems, at 2 points in time. It just doesn't make sense to be spending money on something like that where you could put it on a more... It's just, it's there, and I agree with it, but it's not much to look at, and it never will be much to look at. So why spend the money on something that's way out on West Street when maybe you could do something that's in closer to another older project? Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, me again.
No. It's 10 o'clock.
So what's that mean?
It means we know you're opposed at both hearings. Yes.
May I respond? 2 things. One is that the brush that's currently blocking your view of the building, that's one of the first priorities, to get in there and remove that. And the other thing is that once the building is fixed up, it will look a lot more attractive than it does now.
Thank you. Anyone on the screen?
No questions.
Okay. Historic signage.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Article
See if the town will raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds in the Treasury, borrow or fund pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, a sum of money for the purchase and installation of 15 historic site signs in Stoughton, and it's $17,000.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the second group of signs that the CPA is recommending we fund. On December 6th, 2023, the CPC voted 8-0 to appropriate $17,000 in cash to pay for this article. That is what we are recommending to town meeting. This is a continuation. Many folks have probably seen the historic signs around town in front of the Lucius Clap, in front of this building, and many other places. I'm going to turn it over for a brief presentation to Dwight,
Yes, in the handout, there are examples of a couple of the signs. We have one at the Bird Street Conservation Area and at the Isaac Stearns homestead. The places we plan to put these 15 signs include most of the following: Railroad Station, Fire Station on Freeman Street, Atkinson Avenue / Stoughton Junction, corner of Ryan Road and Sumner Street, North Stoughton, Page Street near the site of the North Stoughton Railroad Station, then the Dry Pond, Evergreen, Holy Sepulchre, and Maplewood cemeteries, the small Marshall Bird Cemetery on 138, and the small Methodist Cemetery near Palilio's, Harris Pond, and the town-owned Gay Hurley McNamara barn on West Street, possibly the site of Girl Street Camp Wallahio on the Bird Street Conservation Area. That's a little more than 15, but from among those locations, we will put in 15 signs.
Fran?
No questions.
Scott?
No questions, but I
John?
appreciate this.
Mike?
No questions.
Okay. The audience? Yes, Mr. DeFelice?
Great question. What's the cost per sign?
$1,000
Per sign?
per sign.
I'm familiar with the signs you have out there, around town.
So it's that heavy metal steel base that they custom make, each one of them, that I think is about 2/3 of the cost of it. We actually save money because the DPW has been installing them for us. But they're not cheap, but so far they've been durable.
I was just wondering because I think that's
When you leave this building tonight, there is one on the front lawn of Town Hall. It's like a pedestal with a sign. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just questioning the cost per sign seems to be.
Well, the answer was $1,000. Anyone else? John? We're going to move on to Article 43, Bird Street Conservation Area Entryway Improvements. So, thank you for your extreme patience. There we are. To see if the town will raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds of the Treasury, borrow or fund pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44B, the Community the word preservation seems to not trip off my tongue. Act, a sum of money for the design and construction of entryway improvements at the Bird Street Conservation Area to include an electronic gate, monitoring camera, utility infrastructure for the gate and camera, signage and fencing, and landscaping and tree work. $110,000.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was brought to us by the Conservation Commission. The CPC on January 3rd, 2024, voted 8-0 to recommend to town meeting $110,000 as a cash expenditure. I'm going to turn it right over to Jerry McDonald, the Chair of the Conservation Commission.
Good evening, Jerry McDonald, Precinct 4 Town Meeting Rep, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. This article is a continuation of the trail grant article that we had in the past from town meeting, and the trail grant we got awarded from the state. So we've done some projects out at Bird Street they had a lot of water issues, trails that were impassable, and people were complaining about them. So we got the trail grant to address those. Most of those are done at this point in time. People love them. The last phase of the trail grant was to put in a small parking lot at the end of Bird Street to increase accessibility to people that didn't live in the immediate neighborhood, so people could drive there and enjoy it. There is parking at the Lesser Playground, at the corner on West Street, but there was nothing really at Bird Street. So this little parking lot addresses that. In meeting with neighbors and discussing it with the Conservation Commission, we realized that the trail grant didn't include any access control to this parking lot. So potentially the parking lot would be wide open all night long, and we were concerned about security. With the new town's focus on controlling trash, we were concerned that it might become a dumping ground when people have to pay to get rid of their mattresses, et cetera. And we didn't want our nice parking lot in Bird Street to be the place where they brought their mattresses. So we are contemplating and looking for an electronic access gate and camera system that's very much in the same realm of what was installed at Glen Echo, which has been very popular park, and the gate has been successful. So the $110,000, we gave you a budget, is really duplicate what's at Glen Echo and then do a little cleanup in the vicinity of the entranceway, which it's overgrown, it's a mess. It used to be a nice wooden sign there, carved, huge wooden sign said Bird Street. It's fallen into disrepair. So we want to do a few of those things in conjunction with getting this in safety gate. We had endorsed by the state police, fire, DPW, this gate. I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. John?
Questions?
Mike?
No questions.
Fran?
No questions.
Scott?
No, just want to say I love Bird Street. I'm in there at least once a week. All the stuff that's been going on, all the buildups, the drainage of the area now, I can actually walk in there without coming out knee deep in mud. So I love it. And whatever you do, just keep going because I have directly across the street access to it. So I'm kind of opposed to having parking in there because I want to keep it to myself. But it's wonderful. And you guys are doing a great job. So love it.
Thank you very much. We're working at it.
The public? Anyone on the screen? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your consideration.
Use my executive privilege here to skip to Article 51. Article 52. Sidewalks on Turnpike Street from Central Street to Park Street design. Seeing as how Peter, the petitioner, has been very patient.
PowerPoint? Yeah. Let me see. Find it.
Patiently waiting.
I do. You do? I do.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate,
It's a P. Murphy.
transfer from available funds in the treasury, if any, state and federal grants, or borrow a sufficient sum of money per general law, Chapter 44, Section 7, to pay for the engineering survey, design services for sidewalks on Turnpike Street from Central Street to Park Street, approximately 1.2 miles, including, if necessary, land acquisition and/or easements and all other work required to complete the design of the new sidewalk. And it says the estimated cost is $1,401,444.
That was the quote that I got from the town engineer through our,
That's just the design.
that's the design,
Okay.
well, that's the design work, that's also for permitting, and there's other related things to it. I do have a copy of the quote in my bag, and I'll have that at town meeting. But also going before public meetings. You find it?
Oh, yeah, it's here somewhere.
Well, since there's actually, just Peter,
Yep. Okay.
Can you see that at home, John? I don't think you can see that.
You do a shared screen.
Hang on a minute. Here we go. Is it here this year?
Right over the J.
Is it right there?
No, with the arrow to the right,
Right.
to the right.
Yeah.
Where's that now?
Yeah.
Okay, I just gotta find it. How do I find it? Here.
Peter, there's only two people in the audience,
All right.
and do you have enough copies?
Actually, I believe it was Bob. Did it get sent out to the individuals?
Well, we have it. Do you have one for Ed and one for
Yeah,
Peter?
this copy's over here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'd be easier.
All right.
Sorry, I'm not, this big screen always throws me.
He's the moderator, not the techie.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Techie tonight.
All right, to start off, for those that are not familiar with Turnpike Street it runs from, it actually starts at Park Street, runs north all the way down to Target. The section that I'm concerned about is the section that runs from Park Street all the way to Central Street. That's approximately 1.2 miles. The goal of this is to have the town design and have ready for construction sidewalks on Turnpike Street from Central to Park, approximately 1.2 miles. This is required prior to requesting state and federal aid. If you go to the third slide. All right. Residents of the area are impacted by on a daily basis. There is an average of 5,364 vehicles traveling on Turnpike Street. Several school bus routes with multiple bus stops on Turnpike Street. Students crossing the street and standing on the street at intersections while waiting for the bus. Turnpike Street is heavily traveled with cars, trucks, and long trailer trucks, 53-foot long trailer trucks, 10-wheel dump trucks loaded with asphalt. Pedestrians and joggers need to be mindful of traffic at speeds in excess of 30 miles per hour. Going to slide 4. Traffic has increased over the years. Turnpike Street has become a known bypass for Route 24 during rush hour, especially if there's an accident on 24. With IKEA, Costco, Jordan's Furniture, Home Depot being large draws, accessing the back entrance off of Turnpike Street. Amazon with 53-foot long trailers holding parking lot, approximately 75-plus trailers on Maple Street, tractor trailers going to Campanelli Parkway, the other Amazon warehouse that nobody knows about. It was just newly approved in 2023 distribution center with 3 buildings totaling 168 loading docks, 400 employee parking spots utilized in Turnpike Street as an entrance, and the large trucks entering on Page Street. Franklin Sporting Goods Warehouse is added to their building. There's Electrical Warehouse of New England Warehouse down there. Intensity Spray Foam Incorporated. Bob's Furniture Warehouse and Delivery Trucks. Increased use in emergency and ambulance fire trucks on Turnpike Street. Go to slide 5. With this, accidents at Turnpike Street and Central Street have increased as well. We go to slide 6. You ask about the benefits. The benefits is to get the pedestrians out of travel lanes, give students a safe passageway to and from bus stops. This is critical since the peak travel times for students and traffic is from 7 to 8 a.m. and from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. This would allow joggers not to worry about cars and large trucks doing 30 miles an hour plus. With striping adding bike travel lanes, current width of the paved street is 27 feet wide. Travel lanes is 24. Each lane is basically 12 feet wide. There's a dirt buffer on both sides, ranging from 4 feet to 8 feet on each side. This section of Turnpike Street has an easement of 60 feet wide. Improve the quality of life environment for the abutters and the surrounding neighbors on Turnpike Street. And the critical part of this study is the ability to seek state and federal funding for sidewalk construction. The design work must be completed by the town first before they'll look at it. Slide 7. Okay. Park Street, Route 27 at Turnpike Street, including Campanelli Parkway, a surrounding area. These are different road study audits that were done. That was a 2019 town meeting warrant Article 35 that was approved for $375,000. Prepared under Mass DOT contract number 108210 through the Old Colony Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'll go to the next one. The final date of the audit was October 28, 2019. The participating members, this is a road safety audit, participated audit members comprised of Stoughton Police, residents, planning, engineering, DPW, Mass DOT, Old Colony Planning Commission. And from that audit, it came out, this is the next slide. That's where I achieved the number, or got the number of the road safety audit, excuse not me, road safety audit, participating audit members, I'm sorry, slide 9. The average traffic count was 5,364 vehicles. Slide 10. The intersection improvement of Route 27, Park Street and Turnpike Street, which has been underway. That was in that study. One of the comments is down towards the bottom. It says a new sidewalk along the northwest side of Turnpike Street and a shared use path along the southeast side up to the Campanelli Parkway. So they saw the need for a parkway. Just to let you know that this project, where they're going to be putting in traffic lights and doing other things, is the project is in the preliminary design phase right now. Next slide. The next audit that was done, this is when they did the sewer line. Park Street, Route 27 at Turnpike Street included Campanelli Parkway and surrounding area. Town of Stoughton, prepared by Old Colony, considered sidewalk improvements, including extending existing sidewalks and adding sidewalks from Park Street to Campanelli. The Park Street Extension Project Finance Committee's presentation of 2019, they approved the funding of the designs, and item number 5, they went and they said provide truck and pedestrian safety improvements in the surrounding area. If you notice, if you do go down Park Street, down Turnpike Street, they did add sidewalks on 10th Street, a small section of Park Street, small section of Turnpike Street to Campanelli, but it stops right there. They did not continue the sidewalk up Turnpike Street at all. Okay, the next slide. The next line is. Thank you. The next slide is Chapter 90 past funding appropriated to Stoughton Highway District 5. And if you look at that, over 8 years, the average was $771,604. 1 year, the state was generous and gave $1,156,098. This is just to keep up with the repairs needed for all the roads in the town of Stoughton. Over the past 2 years, the DPW has asked for over $4 million for resurfacing roads within the town. So keeping in mind when considering this article, Turnpike Street is thickly settled residential area with speed limit of 30 miles per hour. Several school bus routes with multiple bus stops. Students must walk across along Turnpike Street and then stand in the roadway. Joggers, walkers, and also people walking their dogs while in the roadway. Again, I mentioned about the average vehicle is 5,364 vehicles traveled by cars, trucks, long trailer trucks, and dump trucks. Adding to the near future, again, I get back to the recent approval of that building down at the further end of Turnpike Street. The Campanelli Industrial Sewer Project is to increase the growth in the area, leading to increase in traffic flow in the area. Over the years, we have been told that all these additions will bring in millions and millions of dollars to the town. What was not mentioned to Turnpike residents, the quality of life, would be paying the price with disregard for traffic, noise, safety to walkers, joggers, and children in the area. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I shortened it.
You've been working on this for years. It's not, something new. Fran?
Mayor, I have brought this before the select board, brought it before the planning board, and it's not, this has been, again, in the works. One of the things is this is the petition you're gonna see this year. I went and I had members of the town meeting sign it, because that's when I got the quote that showed me the dollar value. I had an earlier petition that I went and I walked up and down Turnpike Street and the side streets, and I actually had, one of the women actually was in tears. She said, I can't believe they're gonna put sidewalks. So.
Before we go to any further, I wanted to ask Ms. Whiting and Ms. Zoll, would you prefer to wait until Monday at 7 p.m. here in this room to give your
Presentation.
Your presentation?
I'd have to do it on Zoom.
Well, but would you prefer, rather than, it's going to be 11 o'clock shortly, would you prefer to do it exactly a week from today, and you and Ms. Zoll would be our first speakers?
I would prefer. Yes.
All right. When we end this meeting, we'll make sure we continue the public hearing so that you will be heard on, so that's the 18th. On the 18th, in the Atanas room at 7 p.m. What about you, Robin?
Will I be able to attend on Zoom?
Yeah, on Google,
Yes.
the same way you're doing it.
It's just that I think it's unfair. There's really, there's no one left in the, well, there's two people left in the room, and I think you'd prefer more of a vibrant audience.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, Sylvia, you'd be able to attend the same way you're doing it right now through Google Meets.
Okay. I did send a letter to the committee.
And if something happens on Monday, I will read it into the record.
Okay, great. Thank you. I did want to point out that somebody has sent me a postcard that I thought was a little bit threatening, and I was very surprised, and it came in the mail today.
I think you should contact Chief McNamara as soon as you can.
Okay, I'll do that. All right, thank you.
What about you, Robin?
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Robin Zoll, are you there?
She's muted.
You're muted.
Well, at my discretion. We'll continue. My plan is we will finish with Mr. Murphy, and Articles 50, 51, and 54 will be continued on Monday.
The public
November,
hearing will continue.
March 18th. Can't be November, said the meeting hasn't been that long. And they'll be heard at 7, and then my intention would be to do all the voting on the 22 articles. Fran, a question? For Mr. Murphy?
Typically, these design improvements are brought forth by the engineering department. Does the engineering department support this?
Yes, I went and I've had multiple conversations with Mark, and he went and he brought out the fact that there is the lower part of Turnpike Street. He has some concerns about drainage down that area. So one of the things that I also did was after last last year when I didn't make the deadline with the original petition, there is a form that you fill out requesting through the town engineering to get the quote. I submitted that to Mark, and that's where I do have a quote from the contractor that they use.
Do you know what contractor it is?
I have it in my bag.
It's fine,
Yes.
it's fine.
GCI, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the contractor they've been using, and but no, Mark has been in this, and he says it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot of money. But I raised the point that the different industry that has been pushed down that end of town, all right, the town makes a lot of money from that, and I'm not sure if you ever heard of a game called Sim. It was a child's game, how to design a city. And what it is my daughter actually showed me about that. And what it does is as your city starts to grow, there's certain things that you have to expand upon. For example, the fire station, we had to expand the fire department. We have to extend the police department. You know, we now have to make it safe for the residents down that area.
Are you going to take questions? Because he's.
Yeah. So
I don't mean to cut you off, but you only have 10 minutes on town meeting time. You know?
Okay, did you have anything else to ask?
No.
You, Scott?
No.
John, anything to ask the petitioner?
Nope.
Mike?
No questions.
The audience?
John and
Okay.
Michael, let me just ask, John and Michael, are you able to make it next Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, just on, perfect. Yeah, we'll just, you can do it this, I'm sorry, John. What's that, John? 7 o'clock, Monday, the 18th. Same way, I'll just send out a new link. Okay, great. Appreciate that, guys.
Okay, I need a motion to continue the public hearing.
So made.
A second?
Second.
And now we need a vote. John?
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So thank everyone for their, especially Mr. Murphy, for your extreme patience.
Well, thank you for taking me out of order.
I didn't lie.
No,
I made no promises.
You got to adjourn the meeting.
I know. Motion to adjourn?
Adjourn?
Second? All in favor?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you for attending. Good night, everybody.